Chapter 2985. In just 100 breaths. The Saint Mountain was blasted into pieces. The palaces and buildings on the mountain peak were all destroyed. The Saint Mountain, which was originally 1,000 feet tall, was now a 3,000 feet tall ruin. Many of the treasuries of the Blood Sword sect, as well as the secret passages and rooms inside the mountain, were also destroyed. The loss of the Blood Sword sect was immeasurable. It would be difficult for them to recover in 50 years. However, the earth-shattering battle was not over yet. The sky within a few hundred miles was still filled with smoke and dust. 18 divine lords surrounded the ruins of the Saint Mountain in their battleships and continued to bombard it. The goal of the Blood Blade sect was not as simple as destroying the Saint Mountain. They also wanted to raze the Saint Mountain to the ground and not leave a single intact stone for the Blood Sword sect. In the sky above the ruins, Ji Tianqing, Xue Huan, Xue Long and left emissary Jin were attacking the Blood Sword with all their might. The Blood Sword sect master had fused with the Blood Sword. It looked like a giant blood sword that was 1,000 feet tall. Showing off his ability, the bloody light soared to the heavens. The blood sword was extremely ghostly and nimble. It flashed and shuttled in the sky. Only Ji Tianqing could catch the trajectory of the blood sword and block its attack. Xue Huan, Xue Long and left emissary Jin could not defend against it. In the last moment, the blood sword had brushed past Divine Lord Xue Huan and sent him flying. The next moment, the blood sword appeared behind left emissary Jin. Left emissary Jin was shocked. He subconsciously teleported and dodged the blood sword's attack. However, 2 of the hundreds of dark red sword chi released by the blood sword hit him and made 2 bloody holes in his right leg. Left emissary Jin groaned in pain. Seeing this, Divine Lord Xue Long immediately teleported over to help him block the blood sword's attack. However, the blood sword crossed 50 miles and appeared above Divine Lord Xue Long's head and slashed down. Divine Lord Xue Long did not have time to dodge and was about to be cut in half. At the critical moment, Ji Tianqing teleported over and blocked the blood sword's attack. In just 30 breaths, the two sides had exchanged more than 200 blows. Xue Huan, Xue Long, and left emissary Jin were all wounded by the blood sword. Their god power was drained rapidly, and their fighting abilities were weakening rapidly. The blood sword, on the other hand, was galloping freely between heaven and earth, flashing back and forth. The divine ability killer moves of the 3 divine lords could not harm the blood sword at all. Only Ji Tianqing was able to threaten the blood sword, injuring it 3 times and weakening its power a bit. However, the sect master of the Blood Sword sect was very smart and avoided Ji Tianqing as much as possible. At this time, the battle between Ji Tianqing and the Blood Sword sect master had reached its climax. Although Ji Tianqing, who had transformed into a 1,000-meter-tall golden-armored war god, was already covered in wounds, his power was still as strong as ever. However, his power was still as violent as ever, as if he would never tire. As for the 1,000-meter-tall blood-red sword, it was also covered in wounds, with dozens of gaps. The blood-red light that the sword emitted was clearly much dimmer, and the sword intent was not as sharp and powerful as before. Without a doubt, the blood-red sword had been injured by Ji Tianqing, and the injuries were not light. The blood sword sect master had fused with the blood-red sword, so he was naturally injured as well. The Blood Sword sect master could not accept or believe this result. He found it very hard to believe that the monarch grade high-grade blood-red sword had been injured by Ji Tianqing. This made him very suspicious. What grade was the pitch-black sword in Ji Tianqing's hand? Was it also a supreme grade monarch grade sword? Or perhaps, a legendary king grade divine artifact? Actually, Ji Tianqing was also very puzzled by this question. A long time ago, he had always thought that the Burial of Heaven sword made from origin stones was a heaven-grade divine artifact. After all, origin stones were more powerful than ordinary divine stones, and their origins were mysterious. It was understandable that the burial of Heaven Sword's grade was higher than ordinary true God-grade divine artifacts. However, he only realized after coming to the God realm. The burial of Heaven Sword's grade was not as simple as Heavenly God grade. Even if it faced various monarch-grade divine artifacts, it would still be able to forcefully clash with them, and it would not be at a disadvantage. This made Ji Tianqing very surprised. Could it be that the burial of Heaven's Sword had become a monarch-grade divine artifact? All these years, the burial of Heaven had been working hard to recover, and the results were actually so obvious. Today, the burial of Heaven's Sword had faced the supreme grade blood-red sword. It was still not at a disadvantage. Not to mention how much the burial of Heaven's Sword was better than the blood-red sword, it was at least evenly matched. Only now did Ji Tianqing realize that the burial of Heaven's Sword made from origin stones was actually comparable to a supreme-grade monarch-grade divine artifact. Of course, he was 100% sure that the burial of Heaven's Sword could only stop at monarch-grade. It was definitely not a king-grade divine artifact. This was because king-grade divine artifacts were very special. They were extremely powerful divine artifacts that contained the principles of the Great Tao. Since it's not a king-grade divine artifact, it's invincible among monarch-grade divine artifacts. In that case, the burial of Heaven's Sword should be one of the strongest monarch-grade divine artifacts. Chapter 2986. Unknowingly, an hour had passed. The battle between Ji Tianqing and Sect Master Blood Sword had long since reached its most intense stage. Both sides had exchanged close to 10,000 moves, and all the divine abilities and skills they could use had been used once. Their divine power had been consumed too intensely, and they were almost completely exhausted. However, both of them were exceptionally talented. One had the support of the Blood Sword and the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land, and could still maintain 50% of his strength. The other had the Heaven-Mending Pearl and the Five Elements World to replenish his energy, and he would never tire. His divine power was always abundant, and his battle strength was always at its peak. Comparing the two, Sect Master Blood Sword's fate was naturally more miserable. The 3,000-meter-tall Blood Sword was already covered in cracks and gaps, as if it had grown a row of saw teeth. The blood light had dimmed, and its power was much weaker than before. In fact, the Blood Sword had become less offensive and more defensive. Most of the time, it was weary of blocking Ji Tianqing's attacks, and occasionally finding an opportunity to counterattack. Based on the current situation, Sect Master Blood Sword would be defeated in an hour at most. At that time, he would definitely die with his sword destroyed. However, Ji Tianqing was not satisfied with this result, and he was still anxious. An hour later, he would be able to defeat the Blood Sword and kill Sect Master Blood Sword. To him, this was simply too slow. Because he had been calculating the time. He had to kill Sect Master Blood Sword before the experts of Sect Master Blood Sword returned. Otherwise, the situation would become even more complicated, and Sect Master Blood Sword might take the opportunity to escape. Unfortunately, no matter how anxious he was, it was useless. Sect Master Blood Sword did not show himself at all, hiding in the Blood Sword like a turtle. Relying on the Blood Sword's protection, he could continue to stall for time. After all, the Blood Sword was a genuine supreme-grade monarch-grade divine artifact. It was only 2 hours, so he could hold on no matter what. Soon, another 30 minutes passed. Ji Tianqing's attacks did not weaken at all, and he continued to brandish the burial of Heaven, sending out sky-covering swordlights to attack the Blood Sword. Sect Master Blood Sword's injuries were even more severe, and he was even weaker. However, he also understood. He had actually given up on resisting and breaking out of the encirclement, and changed to using all his strength to defend and defend. The 3,000-meter-long Blood Sword shrank to about 30 meters and entered the depths of the earth. Under the control of the Blood Sword Sect's Sect Master, the Blood Sword released invisible divine power and frantically absorbed the Dragon Blood divine power in the ground. At the same time, the Blood Sword Sect Master also used his Sword Dao divine ability to form an illusory sword net. An oval-shaped dark red sword net floated deep underground. No matter which angle Ji Tianqing attacked from, the sword net was able to block all of them. Even though the net of swords would constantly shatter and collapse if it received too many attacks. However, the sect master of the Blood Sword sect was constantly repairing the sword net and replenishing its defensive power. Even if the sword net would be broken through sooner or later, the blood sword would definitely shatter. But by doing so, he could stall for more time. Not to mention 2 hours, even 4 hours would not be a problem. Finally, 2 hours passed. A 7-colored light barrier with a radius of 300 miles appeared between heaven and earth, sealing this area. Shua! Ji Tianqing and the sect master of the Blood Sword sect were both sealed by the 7-colored light barrier. At this moment, left emissary Jin's voice sounded in Ji Tianqing's mind. Young Master Tianqing, we've already set up the Celestial Fiend Space Sealing Array and sealed off the area within a radius of 300 miles. Don't worry, we'll maintain the array and not let the Blood Sword Sect Master escape. Hearing this news, Ji Tianqing only let out a sigh of relief and was not very happy. This was because he could see that the Blood Sword Sect Master had no intention of escaping. The Blood Sword Sect Master probably still hadn't given up and wanted to wait for reinforcements to return so that he could make a comeback. The completion of the Celestial Fiend Space Sealing Array only served as a safeguard and did not have any substantial effect. You guys guard the array and prevent the reinforcements from returning. This sovereign will kill the Blood Sword Sect Master as soon as possible. Ji Tianqing transmitted to left emissary Jin. Then, he held the Sword of Burial of Heaven and used his Sword Dao divine ability to attack the Blood Sword deep underground. After fighting for so long, Ji Tianqing could already see some clues. The Blood Sword was deep underground and absorbing the mysterious dragon blood energy from the earth. It was precisely because of this that the Blood Sword's energy had not been exhausted, allowing Lin Shan to last until now. Ji Tianqing not only wanted to attack the Blood Sword, but also cut off the dragon blood energy. Thus, he used the Law of Earth and slashed out several giant swords. Bang! 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 With a deafening explosion, the rock layer deep underground was cut into several pieces by the swords. With the Blood Sword as the center, the surroundings were cut open. The rock stratum where the Blood Sword was turned into an isolated island. The connection between the island and the land around it had been severed. It became abnormally difficult for the Blood Sword to absorb the dragon blood energy from the surroundings. This move was indeed effective. The Blood Sword was continuously attacked, and its energy was constantly being consumed. However, it could not be replenished, and its power was rapidly weakening. The Blood Sword Sect Master's injuries were becoming more and more miserable, and he was becoming more and more anxious. 15 minutes later. The Blood Sword had even more cracks, and its light was even dimmer. The Blood Sword Sect Master's injuries were also very severe, and he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Ji Tianqing sped up his attacks, wanting to defeat the Blood Sword and kill Lin Shan. But at this moment, outside the dragon blood forbidden ground, a dazzling white light lit up, and deafening battle cries resounded. The sudden turn of events alarmed everyone in the field. Ji Tianqing hurriedly released his divine sense to investigate the situation several thousand miles away. He saw a 3-story treasure ship that was 10,000 feet long. It was shining with divine light as it sped toward the dragon blood forbidden ground. This antique treasure ship was extremely ancient in design. It even looked a little shabby and was filled with an ancient aura. The masts and sails of the treasure ship were covered in cracks and holes. One could vaguely see 4,000 to 5,000 gods in different attire on the treasure ship. They came from different races and wore different attire, but they were loyal to the same faction. Most of these people were heavenly gods. They wielded weapons like sabers, spears, swords, halberds, and other strange weapons as they shouted with killing intent. At the top of the treasure ship were more than 20 divine lords in purple, gold, and black robes. They were all aggressive and filled with killing intent. They all held sabers and kenshin weapons in their hands. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned when he saw the appearance of these people. His eyes became serious. Damn it! 2 hours have just passed, and they really came back. The Blood Sword Sect Master, who was heavily injured, was originally dispirited and suffering greatly in his heart. Suddenly, he heard the battle cries outside the forbidden ground, so he also released his divine sense. When he saw the ancient treasure ship, he immediately became spirited, and his dim eyes suddenly glowed with radiance. Ha ha ha! You brats really didn't disappoint me. I've held on for so long and finally waited for you to come back. Kill! Kill all the bastards of the Blood Blade sect. At the same time, Shui Huan, Divine Lord Blood Dragon, left emissary Jin, and the others also used their divine sense to check the treasure ship. At first, they thought that the Blood Blade sect master had come with the elders and disciples to reinforce them. However, when they clearly saw the appearance of the treasured ship and those people, they immediately widened their eyes in shock and their expressions became extremely unsightly. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2987. Heavens! It's not the sect master or the elders. Damn it! It's the bastards of the Blood Sword sect. They came back so quickly. Logically speaking, the sect master and the elders should have arrived long ago. Why haven't they appeared yet? Shui Huan, Shui Long, and left emissary Jin were all filled with anxiety and worry. They watched as the ancient treasure ship quickly approached them. In 10 breaths at most, it would reach the Sky Demon Space Lock Array. Blood Illusion suppressed his shock and ordered, "Don't be in a daze. The reinforcements of the Blood Sword sect have returned. We must fight with all our strength. Block them outside the array. We can't let them stop young Master Tianqing from killing Lin Shan." Blood Dragon and Gold Left Emissary also calmed down and nodded in agreement. That's right. As long as we block the reinforcements of the Blood Sword sect, young Master Tianqing will be able to kill Lin Shan soon. Once Lin Shan is killed and Blood Sword is destroyed, the Blood Sword sect will be leaderless. Those dogs will also scatter. The 3 divine lords hurriedly ordered the 18 divine lords to fight. Whoosh! 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 The 18 divine lords unsheathed their kenshin weapons and formed a battle formation in the sky, staring at the treasure ship. In addition, more than 600 experts flew out of the 18 battleships and formed a battle formation in the sky. The remaining 200 experts stayed in the 18 battleships. They were responsible for controlling the battleships and forming a battle formation to fight against the treasure ship and the reinforcements of the Blood Sword sect. After a few breaths, the two sides engaged in close combat. The ancient treasure ship stopped when it was 10 miles away from the 7-colored barrier. Whoosh! 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 More than 20 god monarchs led more than 4,000 elite experts and flew out of the treasure ship. They split into more than 20 groups and charged at the Blood Blade sect with murderous intent. The bastards of the Blood Blade sect invaded our forbidden grounds, destroyed our sacred mountain, and tried to besiege the sect master. Today, we must kill them all and let their blood flow like a river. Blood Sword sect disciples, listen up. Kill the bastards of the Blood Blade sect at all costs. Anyone who kills one will be rewarded with 100,000 divine stones. Whoever kills the enemy's divine sovereign will be rewarded with a monarch-level divine ability, a divine artifact, and 10 billion divine stones. At the very front of the Blood Sword sect's group were 2 white-haired old men, their voices as loud as bells. They were the first elder and second elder of the Blood Sword sect. Their words greatly motivated the experts of the Blood Sword sect, causing their blood to boil and their fighting spirit to soar. As the saying goes, when there's a great reward, there's bound to be brave men. The sky-high bounty that head elder offered made everyone's eyes turn red from excitement. They became even more ferocious as they charged towards the people of the Blood Blade sect like bloodthirsty demonic beasts. Boom! Pang pang pang! Rumble! In the next moment, both sides clashed fiercely, colliding with each other and exploding with a loud bang. Thousands of divine abilities and secret arts burst forth with dazzling divine light, illuminating the heaven and earth for thousands of miles. All sorts of saber lights, sword shadows, and mountainous beasts clashed in the sky, shattering into pieces. The 18 divine battleships also shot out several hundred beams of light, which rained down on the Blood Sword sect members. Millions of shards of divine light were swept away by the violent shockwaves and scattered in every direction. Chaotic and violent gales swept across the battlefield, sweeping across 3,000 miles. In just a single clash, both sides had suffered massive casualties. More than 60 disciples of the Blood Blade sect had been killed on the spot. The Blood Sword sect's experts had also suffered nearly 100 casualties. However, the auras of the two sides were completely different. The Blood Blade sect had their backs against the celestial demon spatial lock array. They could only resist the charge of the Blood Sword sect, unable to retreat. Moreover, the number of enemies they were facing was 5 times their number. Unless a miracle occurred, they would undoubtedly lose this battle. Moreover, all of them would die on the spot. On the other hand, the Blood Sword sect's casualties were even heavier, but their morale was as high as a rainbow, their killing intent soaring. They had only suffered nearly 100 casualties, while they had more than 4,000 people. Even if they maintained this casualty rate, they would be able to quickly kill off the Blood Blade sect members. Once the Blood Blade sect members were all dead, they would still have 3,000 people left. What was there to fear? This was an unfair battle to begin with. Boom boom boom. Pang pang pang. The bitter battle continued. Over 40 Divine Lord powerhouses from both sides were fighting high up in the sky. The celestial God realm disciples and experts, on the other hand, were charging and breaking through the enemy lines at low altitudes. Even though the 600 disciples of the Blood Blade sect had 18 divine ships supporting them, they had relied on the power of the divine ships to block the first 3 waves of attacks from the Blood Sword sect. However, when the Blood Sword sect's experts controlled the ships and unleashed a barrage of divine cannons, the Blood Blade sect's disciples suffered a calamity. With each passing second, the number of Blood Blade sect disciples rapidly decreased. Corpses after corpses were blasted to pieces by the divine light, causing a rain of blood to splatter. The Blood Blade sect's disciples grew more and more terrified, their fighting intent constantly dwindling. After 10 breaths of time, they had lost more than 200 people. The remaining 400 disciples were completely suppressed and could only do their utmost to resist. Seeing this, the Blood Sword sect's disciples became even more arrogant and charged even more valiantly. High in the sky, Divine Lord Blood Illusion's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets when he saw this. He anxiously shouted, "Left Emissary Jean, quickly ask young Master Tianqing why he still hasn't killed Lin Shan. Our disciples won't be able to last much longer. They'll all be killed soon." Left Emissary Jean was also anxious. He hurriedly replied, "That old bastard Lin Shan is hiding in the Blood Sword sect. Young Master Tianqing can't do anything to him. Even if young Master Tianqing uses all his strength, he'll still need an hour to kill him." An hour? Divine Lord Blood Dragon felt his vision darken. He was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. By that time, our disciples will have all been killed. Even the 3 of us will be surrounded by thousands of people from the Blood Sword sect. We won't be able to keep our lives. Left Emissary Jean was in a dilemma. He tried asking, "Then what do we do?" We can't ask young Master Tianqing to give up on Lin Shan and help us block the reinforcements of the Blood Sword sect, right? Impossible. Divine Lord Blood Illusion shouted resolutely and angrily, don't forget that our original intention of establishing the Blood Blade sect was to kill Lin Shan. As long as we can kill that old dog, we won't hesitate to sacrifice the entire Blood Blade sect. Left Emissary Jean was startled. He felt great pain in his heart. His eyes were filled with hesitation and struggle. At this moment, at the edge of the forbidden area thousands of miles away, a five-colored divine light that blotted out the sky lit up again. There was a vast and vigorous divine power that was approaching them at lightning speed. Many divine lords sensed the abnormality and released their divine senses to investigate. The next moment, they discovered that there was a divine ship as black as ink at the edge of the forbidden area. It was speeding over at lightning speed. There was clearly a huge symbol of the blood blade on the ferocious-looking divine ship. Seeing this scene, the experts of the Blood Sword sect frowned. Their expressions became grave and fearful. As for Divine Lord Blood Illusion, Blood Dragon, and Left Emissary Jean, they heaved a sigh of relief. They were pleasantly surprised. Ha ha ha. Sect Master has finally arrived. Great. Sect Master has finally arrived. Those bastards of the Blood Sword sect are dead for sure. Mobile version update website, M. Demonic blade Shui Lin streaked across the sky like a bloody light, heading straight for the Sky Demon Space Sealing Array. Those who block me, die. With a roar filled with killing intent, she waved the blood saber in her hand and slashed out dozens of blood-colored blades of light at the 100 Blood Sword sect disciples in front of her. The hundreds of disciples who had formed a battle formation had no time to dodge. Pang pang pang, a series of muffled sounds exploded, and everyone was shredded into pieces by the blood-red light blade. A dark red rain of blood fell from the sky, emitting a nauseating stench of blood. Demon Blade Lin Shui didn't dodge. She passed through the blood rain and continued to rush towards the seven-colored light shield. Another 3 Sir Gods blocked her path. She held the blood saber with both hands and turned it into a bloody hurricane, violently sweeping over. Pang pang pang. The bloody hurricane violently crushed the Sir Gods of the Blood Sword sect, causing their flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. They screamed and flew backwards. One of them was killed on the spot, his godhead shattered. The other 3 were lucky not to die, but they were severely injured and their bodies were incomplete. Swish. Demon Blade Lin Shui finally crossed the sky and landed beside Blood Illusion and Left Emissary Jean. Sir Blood Illusion and Left Emissary Jean were filled with excitement as they hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Sect Master. Sect Master, you're finally here. Demon Blade Lin Shui didn't exchange greetings with them and directly asked in a deep voice, how's the situation? Where's young Master Tianqing? Left Emissary Jean hurriedly explained, we can't help young Master Tianqing deal with Lin Shan, so we set up the Sky Demon Space Sealing Array and sealed off the surrounding 300 miles. Lin Shan, that old dog, is holed up in the Blood Sword, planning to resist until the end. Young Master Tianqing can't do anything to him for the time being. He needs at least an hour to defeat the Blood Sword and kill Lin Shan. Even so, Lin Shui was still shocked when she heard this. Her silver eyes were filled with disbelief. He actually won against Lin Shan in a one-on-one battle. He forced Lin Shan to hold up in the Blood Sword. That's right. Young Master Tianqing is far stronger than we imagined. Sir Blood Illusion hurriedly said, Sect Master, enter the array and help young Master Tianqing kill Lin Shan. With the help of the elders, reverends, and disciples, we can block the reinforcements of the Blood Sword sect. Lin Shui glanced back. A few elders and consecrators were leading thousands of experts to fight bravely. More than 30 disciples stayed in the divine ship and were crazily bombarding the Blood Sword sect's battle array. Although the Blood Sword sect had thousands of people, they were surrounded by enemies and their morale was unstable. The Blood Blade sect could hold on for a short period of time. Then, he clapped his palms together and combined the blood sword and the burial of heaven. Swoosh! At that moment, the blood sword emitted a bloody light that shot into the sky, and the burial of heaven burst forth with endless black light. The sword and the blade had strangely merged. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 2989. Lin Shui was dumbfounded by this scene. Her eyes widened as she stared at the ground with her mouth agape. Her expression and eyes were filled with disbelief. He actually, melted, my blood blade. Shui Lin was a little absent-minded and felt her mind go blank. At the same time, the blood sword sect master was also shocked. He had already been heavily injured and was at the end of his rope. He was only able to block Ji Tianqing's ferocious attacks by relying on the blood sword support and his all-out defense. But he knew very well that in at most an hour, his sword would be destroyed and he would die. Moreover, only the blood blade could counter the blood sword. These two supreme-grade monarch-grade divine artifacts were originally a set, divided into yin and yang and male and female. The two complemented each other but also countered each other. Back then, in the hands of Divine Lord Wufa and his wife, this pair of swords could display their strongest power and was almost invincible. However, in the hands of Lin Shan and Lin Shui, the two swords became mortal enemies. Lin Shan was also a bit worried that Lin Shui would use the blood blade to counter him. If that happened, he would not even be able to last an hour and would die. In the end, what he was worried about really happened. What was even more shocking was that Lin Shui actually gave the blood blade to Ji Tianqing. And Ji Tianqing actually fused the blood blade with his divine sword. What kind of operation was this? Lin Shan was very confused and had a bad premonition. Not good. That kid wants to use the power of the blood blade to defeat my blood sword. This thought flashed through his mind, and Lin Shan did not dare to hold on any more and ran without hesitation. Whoosh! The dark red blood sword turned into a bloody light and flew through the ground, escaping to the edge of the seven-colored light barrier. Obviously, Lin Shan wanted to get rid of Ji Tianqing and escape into the blood sword sect's battle formation. He wanted the experts of the blood sword sect to delay Ji Tianqing and Lin Shui to create a chance for him to escape. Winning or losing was no longer important. As long as he could escape the dragon blood forbidden land and keep his life, it would be fortunate. This was Lin Shan's only thought. However, when the burial of heaven and the blood saber successfully merged, Ji Tianqing was destined to die the moment he made his move. Settle the 8 desolations. Ji Tianqing waved his left hand and pressed his palm into the ground. Instantly, the ground within a radius of several thousand miles was controlled and solidified. The incomparably strong resistance firmly suppressed the blood sword, causing it to be stuck in the underground rock stratum, unable to move. Then, Ji Tianqing held the sword of burial of heaven in his right hand and slashed with all his might. The appearance of the burial of heaven sword that had fused with the blood blade had undergone subtle changes. The blade of the sword was no longer perfectly straight. Instead, it was curved like a crescent moon, and shone even more coldly. A few scarlet veins could be seen on the pitch-black blade, as if fresh blood was flowing through them. This sword had become even more mysterious, and its power had also increased by 2 times. Boom! The black and red sword light sliced through the ground without any obstruction and hit the blood sword. Following a thunderous explosion, the blood sword was sent flying on the spot. Blood splattered everywhere, and a loud explosion shook the heavens. The destructive shockwave blasted a massive crater with a radius of tens of thousands of feet. This caused the ground within a radius of several thousand miles to tremble violently. The blood sword fell into the rock stratum, its blood light flickering unsteadily, and its aura becoming chaotic. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that a gap had appeared on the blade of the blood sword, and several cracks had extended from it. A powerful dragon blood divine power was rapidly dissipating. After suffering such a heavy blow, not only was the blood sword injured, Lin Shan's injuries were even more miserable. Even his divine soul was shaken to the point of dizziness, and his consciousness became hazy. Soon, he came back to his senses. Without hesitation, he drove the blood sword out of the ground and fled towards the south. This time, he had learned his lesson. Knowing that Ji Tianqing had grasped the laws of earth, he did not flee underground, and instead flew into the sky. However, this could not change the outcome. Ji Tianqing crossed 100 miles in one step, instantly catching up to the blood sword, and slashing down again. Duanren border. The burial of heaven sword fell from the sky, and slashed down with a black and red sword 100 zhang long. This enormous sword light contained the aura of death unique to the burial of heaven sword, and the unique Yao power of the blood sword. The blood sword did its best to dodge the enormous sword, but it was too late. With another boom, a loud explosion shook the 9 heavens. The burial of heaven sword slash was the same as the previous one, at the gap in the blade. The blood sword could no longer endure the wild power, and was cut in two. Crack! The blood sword broke in the middle, and dozens of dark red shards flew out. Dark red blood energy filled the sky. The 2 broken blades were sent flying, rolling and stabbing into the ground, trembling incessantly. After suffering such a heavy blow, the blood sword was almost destroyed. Lin Shan had been cut in half at the waist. His injuries were terrible, and his divine soul was even weaker. However, he did not give up. He was only a few dozen li away from the 7-colored light barrier in the south. Enduring his heavy injuries, he used his mind to control the 2 broken swords, and used all his strength to fly toward the 7-colored light barrier. As long as he passed through the light barrier, he would be able to enter the battlefield. At that time, with the cover of the experts of the blood sword sect, he would be able to escape. However, the 2 broken swords had just flown into the sky when Ji Tianqing attacked again. Heaven-piercing sword. With a low roar, he held the burial of heaven sword with both hands, and used 120% of his strength to slash at the broken sword. Crack! Following a crisp cracking sound, the broken sword with a hilt was cut in half once again. The broken sword fell to the ground and was buried in the dust of the ruins. Ji Tianqing directly ignored the broken sword with the tip of the sword. Because he knew that Lin Shan was hiding in the hilt. As expected. The broken sword was cut in half again, and Lin Shan's injuries were even worse. He knew that it was impossible for him to escape with the broken sword. So, he escaped from the broken sword. He forced his battered body to turn into a streak of blood light and continued to flee to the south. Ji Tianqing had expected him to do this and was already prepared to wait for him. Lin Shan had just flown tens of thousands of meters when the burial of heaven sword released a dazzling bloody light and slashed down. Bang! A deafening muffled sound suddenly exploded between the heavens and the earth, reverberating endlessly. Under the dark red bloody light, Lin Shan's broken divine body could be clearly seen being cut in half by the burial of heaven sword. The 2 halves of the body couldn't withstand the violent power and actually exploded, splashing blood and debris into the sky. Lin Shan's divine body was destroyed, and he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. But his willpower was incomparably strong, and he still refused to give up struggling. Whoosh! A walnut-sized dark red divine spark flew out of the bloody rain and fled as fast as lightning. Ji Tianqing had already blocked in front of him, waiting for him to walk into the trap. He stretched out his left hand, and a golden heaven-capturing dragon claw directly grabbed Lin Shan's divine spark. At this point, the battle was over. Lin Shan fell into Ji Tianqing's hands, and his life and death were no longer in his control. Lin Shui watched the entire process dumbfoundedly, and the shock in her heart was indescribable. She silently calculated the time. It was exactly 10 breaths. These thoughts flashed through her mind and she couldn't help but sigh. After a while, she came back to her senses and frowned. Bah! You old witch, what nonsense are you thinking about? Xue Lin was a little ashamed, her cheeks inexplicably hot. She thought that she was a bloodthirsty and heartless witch who had long lost her feelings. Who knew that she would actually have such messy thoughts just now? Although she didn't have any thoughts of crossing the line, the appearance of these 7 emotions and 6 desires made her feel even more ashamed. She lowered her head and glanced at Lin Shan's godhead. She clenched her fists and put it into the interspatial ring. When she raised her head again, her eyes and temperament had already returned to coldness and indifference. Hey! Wait! Xue Lin looked at Ji Tianqing's back and shouted loudly. 30 miles away, Ji Tianqing, who was walking on air, stopped. Without turning his head, he asked in an indifferent tone, "What else?" Xue Lin's figure flashed and teleported 30 miles, appearing in front of him. She frowned and stared at him, asking with an unhappy expression, "You said that you would only borrow my blood knife. Now that you've used it, shouldn't you return the blood knife?" This was serious business, he absolutely couldn't forget. He had to give an explanation. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a calm expression, "You saw it just now, your blood knife has already merged with my divine sword." Xue Lin's brows furrowed even tighter. She secretly clenched her fists in anger and shouted, "Then you mean, you can't return it?" Ji Tianqing thought about it seriously and nodded. "That seems to be the case." "Humph." Xue Lin snorted and said even more angrily, "That's the divine knife my father passed down to me, the natal divine weapon that he cultivated with his life. You didn't give me a heads up and just merged it, you have to compensate me." Ji Tianqing blinked and said very honestly, "I told you that I wanted to borrow your blood knife. You only gave it to me after you agreed, didn't you?" "You." Xue Lin choked and glared at him. "I thought you only wanted to use it for a while, who knew that you would use it all?" Ji Tianqing spread his hands, expressing helplessness. Xue Lin wrinkled her nose and said fiercely, "Don't try to cheat, you have to think of a way to compensate me." Ji Tianqing thought for a while and pointed at her hand and the ruins not far away. He said, "Lin Shan's godhead will be your compensation. If you think it's not enough, there are 3 pieces of the sword in the ruins. You can think of a way to put them back together, they should still be usable." This. Xue Lin was startled, thinking that this result was not unacceptable. In fact, as long as she could kill Lin Shan and take revenge. Even if she had to sacrifice the blood knife and the entire blood knife sect, she would have no regrets. However, she just couldn't stand Ji Tianqing's behavior. He was cold and arrogant, as if everything was right. This made her very unhappy. Seeing that she was silent, Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "If there's no problem, then I'll leave?" Xue Lin frowned and didn't answer. Ji Tianqing asked again, "I'm really leaving?" Xue Lin glared at him and waved her hand, "Forget it, I'm not going to bicker with a little guy like you. You can go. However, don't announce Lin Shan's defeat for now. Otherwise, those dogs of the Blood Sword sect will definitely scatter and flee, and I won't be able to catch them all in one fell swoop." Ji Tianqing was a little surprised and asked with a playful smile, "Oh. Weren't you very angry just now and insisting that I compensate you? Why are you suddenly so open-minded and willing to let me go?" Xue Lin glanced at him and said with a sad expression, "Originally, I founded the Blood Knife sect to deal with the Blood Sword sect and kill that bastard Lin Shan. Now that both the Blood Sword sect and Lin Shan have been destroyed, I have no more regrets. As for the blood knife and sword, they're just worldly possessions. If they're gone, then so be it. After today's battle, I have no more worries and can retire with peace of mind." Ji Tianqing rubbed his nose and suddenly revealed a mischievous smile. "Sorry, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." As he spoke, he flipped his right hand and a bloody light flashed in his palm. Xue Lin's crescent moon-like blood knife appeared in his palm in perfect condition. Losing the blood knife and recovering it, Xue Lin glared at Ji Tianqing angrily. "You brat! You dare to trick me?" Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 2991. Lin Xue was furious. In just a short while, her emotions fluctuated. She glared fiercely at Ji Tianqing, having the urge to strangle him. She thought the blood blade was still there, but it was gone. She thought it was gone and comforted herself. In the end, the blood blade appeared again. Wasn't this a deliberate prank? Ji Tianqing looked at her with a smile and said sincerely, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I just wanted to see if you're as obsessed and bloodthirsty as the legends say." And the result? Lin Xue glanced at him, still not giving him a good look. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "The result is obvious. You're obsessed, but you haven't become a demon. You're just a poor woman with a deep blood feud." This was a very fair evaluation. For nearly 1,000 years, Lin Xue lived only for revenge, and her obsession was deep in her bones. However, she only hated the blood sword sect and Lin Shan, not bloodthirsty and cruel. But Ji Tianqing's words stimulated Lin Xue's nerves. Like a cat with its hair standing on end, she glared at Ji Tianqing and snapped, "What did you just say? Just a poor woman with a deep blood feud. That's it? Little brat. How old are you? Don't pretend to be deep in front of me. I've killed more people than you've seen." Lin Xue put away the blood blade and glared at Ji Tianqing angrily with her hands on her hips. She looked like she was teaching a junior a lesson. Seeing her reaction, Ji Tianqing suddenly wanted to laugh. "Forget it, I won't bicker with you." He shook his head, chuckled, and turned to leave. Lin Xue was even angrier at his attitude. She followed him and shouted, "What do you mean? What's with that expression? Is it disdain? Are you looking down on me? Don't think that you're mysterious and amazing just because you're young and strong. Don't think that I'll be grateful to you and give myself to you just because you helped me take revenge. Stop right there, I'm going to teach you a lesson today and make you understand something. Although you are a monster, a genius, and an outstanding person, you have to understand the basic manners of a person, and you can't look down on women." Lin Xue followed Ji Tianqing all the way to the edge of the array. Ji Tianqing felt a headache coming on. He quickly changed the topic and said seriously, "There's still fighting outside. The Blood Blade sect's disciples won't be able to hold on much longer." The people of the Blood Sword sect didn't know what had happened inside the Grand Formation, nor did they know that Lin Shan had already been defeated. "I can't show myself. Otherwise, when they guess that Lin Shan is defeated, they will scatter. How about this? I'll leave while you go and kill the remaining members of the Blood Sword sect. If there's anything else, just send me a message." After hurriedly giving out instructions, he passed through the 7-colored light barrier and left the grand array without looking back. Sure enough, the battle was still going on in the forbidden area outside the formation. The Blood Sword sect had the upper hand, and more than 4,000 people were attacking the Blood Blade sect. The people of the Blood Blade sect held on bitterly, and their numbers continued to dwindle. Ji Tianqing used the Armillary Heaven's secret art, entered a state of invisibility, and flew toward the south. Lin Xue followed him out of the grand array. Without looking at the battlefield, she hurriedly sent a message to him, "The battle is about to end." "Where are you going?" Ji Tianqing flew through the sky without looking back and replied, "I'm going to the royal capital to take care of business." Lin Xue frowned and asked somewhat unwillingly, "You've helped this old lady so much. This old lady must properly thank you and reward you with treasures and wealth. Can't you stay a few more days and come back to the Blood Blade sect with this old lady?" This time, Ji Tianqing did not reply. He had already flown far away. Lin Shui stood in place and looked toward the southern horizon, stomping her feet in annoyance. Humph. You don't know what's good for you. This old lady was planning to give you half of the Blood Blade sect, but you don't want it. Don't think that just because this old lady is indebted to you, this old lady will pester you and repay you. She muttered angrily, but no one could hear her. Suppressing her anger, she looked at the nearby battlefield and immediately erupted with a frightening killing intent. Bastards of the Blood Blade sect, all of you must die. Lin Shui roared with killing intent. Dragging the long and narrow blood blade with both hands, she charged into the battlefield like a streak of blood-colored light. Whoosh! 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 Blade light filled the sky and a blood-colored hurricane swept out. Several dozen experts of the Blood Blade sect were immediately dismembered by the bloody hurricane, turning into a rain of blood and flesh. When this blood blade which entered the battlefield, the end of the Blood Blade sect had arrived. An entire hour later, the battle in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land finally came to an end. The result was without suspense. More than 4,000 experts of the Blood Blade sect and more than 20 divine lords had all died in battle. The land within a radius of thousands of miles was covered in broken limbs and blood. There were also fragments of treasure ships, weapons, and armor. The Forbidden Land was a scene of desolation, with deep pits and ravines everywhere. The bloody light and bloody mist that blotted out the sky lasted for 3 days before dispersing. After the battle ended, Lin Shui returned to her ship to rest. After killing more than 1,000 people, her body was filled with a terrifying stench of blood, as if she was a god of death. The guards in the hall were all extremely respectful to her. 15 minutes passed. Left Envoy Jean, who was in charge of checking the battle results, returned to the hall and reported to Lin Shui. Congratulations, sect leader, congratulations, sect leader. Our sect obtained a complete victory in this battle and killed nearly 5,000 experts of the Blood Blade sect, including 23 divine lords. Only one Sir God and more than 50 experts managed to escape in the chaos with heavy injuries. However, the Blood Dragon Right Envoy has already led people to pursue them. I believe that there will be good news soon. At that time, the remnants of the Blood Blade sect will all be wiped out. After this battle, not only will we be able to avenge you, but our sect will also replace the Blood Blade sect as the 5th great sect. Lin Shui calmly listened to his report. She only paid attention to the first half of the report and was not interested in the second half. How are the casualties of our sect? Left Envoy Jean was startled for a moment before he lowered his head and replied, reporting to Sect Master, the number of our disciples is 5 times less than the Blood Blade sect. Therefore, the casualties of our sect are slightly greater. More than 160 elite disciples died in battle, and more than 600 experts died in battle. Even out of the 18 Sir Gods, 7 of them had perished. However, their sacrifice was worth it to successfully exterminate the Blood Blade sect. Lin Shui nodded slightly and ordered, Left Envoy Jean, you are in charge of the rewards of the meritorious disciples and the compensation of the injured disciples. According to the sect's previous rules, give the meritorious disciples and the injured disciples 10 times the reward and compensation. 10 times. Left Envoy Jean was stunned and his eyes widened in disbelief. The rules of the Blood Blade sect were very humane and valued friendship. If an elite disciple died in battle, his family would receive 5 million godstones as compensation. If it was 10 times the compensation, it would be 50 million godstones. Left Envoy Jin's heart twitched and his hands trembled. He wanted to howl in grief. Sect Master. Even if you have taken revenge and are in a good mood, you can't be so willful. With 10 times the compensation, our sect's treasury will be emptied and we will soon go bankrupt. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 2992. Of course. Left emissary Jean could only think about it. Since the sect master had given the order, he couldn't go against it and could only obey. When he announced the news to the disciples and god lords were overjoyed. Everyone was moved to tears and shouted that the sect master was mighty and that they would forever be loyal to the Blood Blade sect. Next, Left emissary Jean led people to treat the injured and counted the names of the dead disciples. By the time he was done, 4 hours had passed. Thus, the people of the Blood Blade sect boarded the divine ship and left the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground. The once glorious Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground was annihilated in the flames of war and completely silent. For a long time after that, there were many experts and powerhouses who came to investigate the situation in the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land every day. Countless people sighed and found it hard to believe. How could the Blood Sword sect, which had once been as domineering as the sun in the sky, disappear just like that? After Lin Shue's divine ship left the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground, it arrived at the branch outside Shanyang County City. Through the teleportation array in the branch, they left Shanyang County. After half a day, the divine ship finally returned to the headquarters of the Blood Blade sect. At this time, the news of the destruction of the Blood Blade sect had already spread throughout Shanyang County. The news of this earth-shattering explosion was spreading at an extremely fast speed to all the counties. At the Blood Blade sect's headquarters, something shocking had happened as well. Sect Master Lin Shui arranged the follow-up matters in just 1 day. Then, she gathered the elders, reverends, and deacons and announced the dissolution of the Blood Blade sect. Once this news came out, everyone was stunned. More than 20 god lords were like petrified statues. They stood in the hall and couldn't make a sound for a long time. No one could believe that the sect master would dissolve the Blood Blade sect at its most glorious moment. Before they could enjoy the fruits of victory, they were dismissed. This was like a bolt from the blue. After everyone came back to their senses, they all objected and tried to persuade the sect master. There were even some emotional elders and deacons who knelt on the ground and cried. But Lin Shui was abnormally calm and her attitude was firm. Shui Huan and Left emissary Jean were also in the hall. Their expressions and emotions were very complicated. Although the two of them had a premonition. Many years ago, they had guessed that revenge was the sect master's greatest belief. Once he took his revenge, the sect master would have nothing to worry about and would no longer manage the Blood Blade sect. In any case, the sect leader was not ambitious and did not yearn for power and status. The purpose of the Blood Blade sect's existence was to deal with the Blood Sword sect. Even though the two of them were already mentally prepared. But when they heard the sect master announce the news in front of everyone, their hearts still felt heavy and uncomfortable. After waiting for a while, Shui Lin explained the reason. Other than the vice sect leader and Left emissary Jean, the others may not know that I founded the Blood Blade sect for revenge. Now that I've gotten my revenge, the evil beast Lin Shan has also fallen into my hands. My wish has been fulfilled, so I have no more worries. I just want to live in seclusion and stay away from the disputes and slaughter in the mortal world. However, please rest assured that I will distribute all of the Blood Blade sect's assets to those who have contributed greatly. This way, we won't let down everyone's dedication to the sect for so many years. After speaking, Shui Lin stood up from the throne and said in a serious tone, "Everyone, I have made up my mind. No one needs to persuade me anymore." The elders and deacons looked at each other and discussed secretly. Their hearts were heavy and complicated. At this moment, 2 deacons knelt on the ground and said with a sobbing tone, "Sect leader, the Blood Blade sect is the result of all of us spending half of our lives. Without the Blood Blade sect, we will be lonely ghosts in the future. Even our families will have nowhere to go. If the sect leader is tired of the mortal world and is no longer willing to manage the affairs of the sect, then please allow me to beg you. You can abdicate the position of sect leader and withdraw with peace of mind. This way, we can still create glory under the leadership of the new sect leader." Hearing this deacon's suggestion, the deacons and elders with heavy hearts immediately brightened and became spirited. Everyone weighed the pros and cons and agreed, asking Xue Lin to abdicate the position of sect leader and keep the Blood Blade sect. These elders and deacons were all very smart. Although the Blood Blade sect was disbanded, they could receive astronomical compensation and rewards. However, if the Blood Blade sect was kept, they could enjoy power and status and obtain countless wealth and resources in the future. Furthermore, as one of the 5 major sects, the Blood Blade sect's descendants would be protected for 10,000 years. Because of this, everyone took the risk of angering Xue Lin and persuaded her to abdicate the position of sect leader. In a short while, all the deacons, elders and guardians bowed and begged Xue Lin to abdicate the position. Only the blood illusion god and gold-left emissary stood quietly beside Xue Lin and did not say anything. Furthermore, everyone was well aware of the situation. If Xue Lin abdicated the position of sect leader, the two of them had the highest chance of succeeding. Xue Lin looked at everyone calmly and shook her head gently. She said sincerely, "I have my own reasons for disbanding the Blood Blade sect, but there are also more important considerations. It is indeed worth celebrating that we have destroyed the Blood Sword sect. However, we have also suffered heavy losses and will only be able to recover after 10 years. Furthermore, there are 2 powerful mountains behind the Blood Sword sect. They are not people we can offend. They will definitely try to disband the sect while it is weak. Everyone present today was their target to be killed. Is glory and wealth more important, or the lives of our disciples and brothers more important?" After saying this, she looked at everyone with a dignified gaze and observed their reactions. Many of the elders and deacons were astonished. Everyone looked at each other and started to discuss secretly. After all, they did not know the background of the Blood Sword sect, nor did they know who was behind the Blood Sword sect. Now that the sect leader had said it, she had already considered it. How could they not be worried? After hesitating for a while, many elders and deacons gave up on persuading her. Although there were still a few people who were unwilling, the situation was already decided. The Blood Blade sect was bound to be disbanded. Gold-left emissary stood out and persuaded everyone, in 3 days, the sect leader will retire. Everyone, take the treasures and wealth you deserve and leave the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom as soon as possible. You can either go to a foreign country and establish your own sect. Or you can live in seclusion and cultivate the Divine Tao. In short, like the sect leader, I hope that everyone can live the rest of their lives peacefully. After another hour's delay, the group of elders, deacons, and reverends finally left with complicated feelings. In the next 2 days, Gold-left emissary and Blood Dragon right emissary followed Xue Lin's instructions and took charge of the disbanding matters. Batch after batch of disciples, deacons, and elders of the Bloodblade sect left the Bloodblade sect with great wealth and treasures. 3 days later, everyone in the Bloodblade sect's headquarters was dismissed. Next, only the assets and wealth of the various branches were left to be handed over and distributed. Gold-left emissary and Blood Dragon right emissary took care of those trivial matters. Xue Lin took Blood Illusion God Lord and quietly left the headquarters for the imperial capital. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 2993. Originally, a top force like the Bloody Blade sect had many properties and complicated personnel. Even if she wanted to disband the sect, disband the various branches and 10,000 people, it would take a long time. But Lin Xue was already prepared and had a corresponding plan. As long as she successfully killed Lin Shan and took her revenge, she could immediately disband the Bloody Blade sect. More importantly, she did not need to do it herself. Left emissary Jean and right emissary Blood Dragon would do it. When she left the Bloody Blade sect, only Sir God Blood Illusion followed her. The two of them used the transportation formation and crossed 3 counties, successfully entering the Bloody Flame County. This was the largest and most prosperous county in the Holy Kingdom. Because the county was the capital of the Holy Kingdom. After entering the Bloody Flame County, Lin Shui and Sir God Blood Illusion could not use the transportation formation to travel. The two of them could only drive the God ship and speed in the sky. The journey was long. Even with the speed of the God ship, it would take 2 days to reach the capital. Along the way, Sir God Blood Illusion asked Lin Shui about his doubts. Sect Master, the Bloody Blade sect was founded by you and developed for almost 1,000 years. It is also the product of your hard work. Disbanding and giving up like this, won't you have any regrets? Lin Shui answered calmly, there's nothing to regret. I'm tired of scheming and cheating. Being bound by the sect, I have no freedom and no chance to reach higher realms of the divine path. Even if it develops for another 2,000 or 3,000 years, it will only expand the Bloody Blade sect's influence by 2 or 3 times. By then, the Bloody Blade sect will at most become the second sect. If I concentrate on cultivating and reach the Divine King realm. After 2,000 or 3,000 years, even if I can't reach the Divine King realm, I will definitely be a peak Divine Emperor. Hearing this, Sir God Blood Illusion nodded in agreement, that's right. Instead of slowly strengthening the sect, it's better to focus on improving oneself. If I can reach the Divine King realm and become a supreme expert, I can crush countless holy kingdoms alone. No matter how strong the sect or holy kingdom is, it is nothing in front of a Divine King expert. After a pause, he asked again, Sect Master, since you have already disbanded the sect and are preparing to concentrate on cultivating the divine path, why are you still heading to the capital? You know that in the next 2 or 3 months, there will be major events happening in the capital. It won't be peaceful. Sir God Blood Illusion did not say it, but both of them knew it. In a few days, the divine blood ceremony would begin. When the time came, prodigies from all over would gather in the capital city. Countless powerhouses and forces would flock there. The royal city would be very lively, but also very dangerous. Godlord Blood Illusion believed that after Shui Lin disbanded the Crimson Blade sect, she would very likely return to the Celestial Fey Empire and live in seclusion. He would always accompany Shui Lin, be her attendant and guard, protect and take care of her forever. But he did not understand why Shui Lin would go to King's City. Shui Lin looked in the direction of the Imperial City and smiled. She said in a playful tone, my trip to the Imperial City has nothing to do with the divine blood ceremony. That's a feast for young geniuses. It has nothing to do with me. Moreover, the news of the destruction of the Blood Sword sect and the disbanding of the Blood Sword sect should have spread to the capital and reached the ears of all the major forces. Now that we've entered the capital, we're indeed in a perilous situation. But I had to go. After all, the consequences of eliminating the Blood Sword sect had yet to be revealed. We have to face it personally. We can't let him suffer for us. Sir God Blood Illusion was stunned and said with a strange tone, him? Are you talking about young Master Tianqing? Shui Lin nodded slightly. Sir God Blood Illusion frowned and said, no wonder he quietly left the battlefield after defeating Lin Shan. So he went to the Imperial City. I've never understood why he didn't stay behind to celebrate the destruction of the Blood Sword sect when he deserved the greatest merit. With your personality, you would have given him an incomparably generous gift of thanks. Could it be that young Master Tianqing is indifferent to fame and fortune and doesn't care about resources and wealth? But if that's the case, why did he go to the Imperial City? Could it be that he wants to participate in the divine blood ceremony? Shui Lin shook her head and said calmly, it's not that he's indifferent to fame and fortune, nor is it that he looks down on my gift of thanks. It's because he's already guessed my next plan. His vision is even further than ours. How so? Sir God Blood Illusion was even more puzzled. Shui Lin patiently explained, if I had given him a gift of thanks, I would have given him at least several billion godstones or resources. Reality has proven that these resources are not that important to him. He only needs to use a little trick to easily obtain them. But those several billion godstones are an enormous fortune to the disciples of the Blood Sword sect. He would rather not give me a gift of thanks and fulfill my plan so that I can smoothly disband the Blood Sword sect. This is the first reason. The second reason is that he already knew that the Blood Sword sect had the support of a prince and that it involved the number one sect, the Heavenly Unity sect. Regardless of the reason, the Blood Sword sect was able to latch onto the Heavenly Unity sect. If we destroy the Blood Sword sect, that prince and the Heavenly Unity sect will take revenge on us. On the surface, it seems that the faction that destroyed the Blood Sword sect is our Blood Sword sect. But in reality, all the great sects understand that the person who truly destroyed the Blood Sword sect is young Master Tianqing. If he stays in the Blood Sword sect, he will attract the revenge of a large number of experts and endanger the disciples of the Blood Sword sect. Thus, he took the initiative to go to the Imperial City and deliver himself to his opponent. This way, the revenge against him will only be carried out in the Imperial City. And the Blood Sword sect will be able to avoid this calamity and smoothly disband according to my plan. Since I've already guessed his intentions, how can I let him fight alone and face the dangers from all sides? I have to join hands with him to survive this calamity. Only then can I retire with a clear conscience. Sir God Blood Illusion was extremely shocked at these words, and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. When you killed Lin Shan, young Master Tianqing had already considered this? Moreover, you and Sir Tianqing have only met once, how do you know each other so well? Is this what it means to have telepathy? Xue Lin waved her hand and said with a playful smile, wrong, it's not telepathy, but because, there are thousands of stupid people, but smart people are all the same. Whatever we could think of, he had already thought of, even further than us. Moreover, I have a strong premonition that he will definitely participate in the Divine Blood Ceremony. This time, the Divine Blood Ceremony would become even more exciting because of his appearance. In fact, there might even be unforeseen changes that occur. Sir God Blood Illusion was even more dumbfounded. He asked in puzzlement, Sect Master, although Mr. Tianqing is a top genius and an interesting person, he is still a genius. However, the Divine Blood Ceremony had been going on for several thousand years, and it had always followed the rules without any problems. Aren't you thinking too much? Xue Lin glanced at him and said calmly, there is only one step between stupidity and cleverness. If you believe it, there is. If you don't, there is nothing. Moreover, that kid is a super troublemaker. Wherever he goes, he will cause trouble. The Imperial City is so lively, with many geniuses and heroes gathering. If he doesn't cause a big mess, he wouldn't be him. Sir God Blood Illusion smiled awkwardly and said, why do I feel like you and he are old friends who have known each other for hundreds of years? Translator, Timothy_editor, Globeglotter. Chapter 2994. Godly Lord Blood Illusion had followed Lin Xue for nearly 1,000 years. He was the first friend Lin Xue made after entering the Great Yan Empire. He was also her most loyal supporter. But until now, he still could not see through Lin Xue sometimes. With her experience, strength, and age, she should be a high and mighty demoness who killed decisively. Most of the time, she behaved as such. But for some reason, she would occasionally reveal some characteristics that did not match her age. For example, naivety, arrogance, and unruly. To Godly Lord Blood Illusion, it was more difficult than breaking through to the Godly Monarch realm to completely understand Lin Xue's thoughts. But today, his horizons had been broadened. Lin Xue and Ji Tianqing had only met once, but they understood each other so well. It was as though they were telepathic. Godly Lord Blood Illusion could not help but mutter. Could they have been friends for a long time? Or was there a special fate between the two of them? After a moment of silence, he cleared these unrealistic thoughts from his mind. He continued asking, Sect Master, Lin Shan's godhead is already in your hands. Don't you hate him the most? Why haven't you dealt with him yet? Why are you still putting him aside? At the mention of Lin Shan, Lin Shui's eyes immediately turned cold and sharp. She sneered and said in a sinister tone, "That bastard is the person I hate the most in my life. How can I deal with him so carelessly? If I don't bring him back to the celestial Fey Empire and deal with him in front of my father's grave, how can I resolve the hatred in my heart? How can I comfort my father's soul in heaven?" Godly Lord Blood Illusion was silent. He nodded and did not say anything else. At the same time, Blood Flame County, in another direction. Ji Tianqing was sitting on the back of a black dragon as he flew towards the imperial city. Since he left the Dragon Blood Forbidden Ground, he had been traveling for nearly 10 days and crossed 2 counties. He estimated that he would reach the imperial city in about 4 days. And the divine blood ceremony would be held in 6 days. He could still make it. It was worth mentioning that he had been attacked 3 times in the past few days. The first attack was when he left the border of Shanyang County. 9 middle-level godly lords led more than 100 heaven god experts and attacked him ferociously. The 2 sides fought fiercely for half an hour before Ji Tianqing killed them all. The results were remarkable. Not only had he obtained a large number of quintessence fragments, but he had also obtained several billion worth of resources and treasures. However, he was unable to find any identification on those people. Even so, Ji Tianqing didn't need to investigate to guess. Those people should be the remnants of the Blood Sword sect. The headquarters of the Blood Sword sect had been destroyed, and 80% of the elites and experts had been killed. However, the Blood Sword sect's sphere of influence was extremely vast. He had many branches under his command, as well as many consecrators and divine lord experts roaming the divine kingdoms. It was understandable that those remnants would ambush him in anger when they found out that the Dragon Blood Forbidden Land had been destroyed. Ji Tianqing was already mentally prepared, so he wasn't surprised at all. 4 days ago, he was attacked a second time in Guoyu County. There were only 4 Sir Gods who had attacked him. 3 middle-level God Monarchs and 1 7th-level God Monarch. The 4 Sir Gods had different styles and came from different clans. The divine abilities and consummate skills that they were good at were also rarely seen. In fact, these 4 Sir Gods might not even be citizens of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Ji Tianqing guessed that they were most likely consecrators or hired thugs of some faction or noble. After a fierce battle, he successfully killed the 3 middle-level God Monarchs. As for the High God Monarch, he had a spatial divine artifact. After being heavily injured by Ji Tianqing, he saw that the situation was bad and fled. Yesterday morning, Ji Tianqing had just entered the Blood Flame County. When he passed by a certain mountain range, he was attacked for the 3rd time. The people who attacked him this time were even more strange. 3 Sir Gods appeared at the same time. The leader was an ugly silver-haired old man with a sinister face. He had the strength of a 6th-level God Monarch. After the 2 sides exchanged several blows, the silver-haired old man and the 2 Sir Gods were injured. They actually stopped attacking and threatened Ji Tianqing not to enter the capital, or else they would lose their lives. After leaving behind a few harsh words, the 3 Sir Gods were about to leave. However, Ji Tianqing was even more ruthless. Without hesitation, he used the heaven-sealing sword formation and stopped the 3 Sir Gods. After a fierce battle, the 3 Sir Gods were killed by Ji Tianqing. Their godheads were also shattered. Next, he let the Black Dragon continue on his way. After entering the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Tower, he refined the godhead fragments of the 3 Sir Gods in the distorted spacetime. He gained 10 new laws and his strength increased. These were secondary. The most important thing was that Ji Tianqing discovered that these 3 Sir Gods were actually from the Fiend Blood Palace. The 3 of them were Purple Star Assassins. The silver-haired old man was the strongest and ranked very high. Previously, when Ji Tianqing was still in the Ning residence in the Heavenly Snow County City, Duanmu Xiong had spent 10 billion divine stones to hire 2 purple star assassins from the Fiend Blood Palace to ambush Ji Tianqing in the Maplewoods Manor. The 2 purple star assassins were called 1000-Star Extermination and 1000-Star Kill. At that time, Ji Tianqing killed 1000-Star Kill but spared 1000-Star Extermination. 1000-Star Extermination was severely poisoned and fled back to the Fiend Blood Palace with serious injuries. At that time, Ji Tianqing asked 1000-Star Extermination to pass a message to the Fiend Blood Palace that they should not provoke him in the future. He did not expect that the Fiend Blood Palace would send 3 purple star assassins to deal with him in less than a month. Of course, the mission of these 3 purple star assassins was not to kill Ji Tianqing. They were only there to warn Ji Tianqing and pass a message to him. However, they did not expect that Ji Tianqing would fulfill his promise and kill them directly. It could be said that he had died a very sullen death. The Fiend Blood Palace should be a force under the second prince. At that time, I let 1000-Star Extermination go and asked him to pass a message to the Fiend Blood Palace. I thought that the Fiend Blood Palace would retreat and not dare to deal with me again. Now, the Fiend Blood Palace obviously did not take my word seriously. Could it be that the second prince also wants to get involved in this mess and kill me? The enmity between Ji Tianqing and the second prince began because of the Qingshan city governor. The 50,000 sets of divine realm equipment were prepared for the second prince, but Jian Wushuang intercepted them. Later, it involved Princess Tianfeng, one of the second prince's confidants, who was also killed by Ji Tianqing. Thinking of these things, Ji Tianqing was already mentally prepared. When I enter the royal city this time, not only will I have to bear the revenge of the little prince, but I will also be targeted by the second prince. Even the people of the He Tian sect are likely to attack me. The royal city must be very lively, right? Ji Tianqing sat on Black Dragon's back, looking at the southern sky and muttering to himself. At this time, White Dragon, who was standing behind him, asked, "Master, Black Dragon has been on the road these days. You have been cultivating in seclusion in the Divine Tower for a long time. You have refined the Godhead fragments of those divine emperors. How many laws have you mastered? Are you about to break through the 4th stage and become a middle-level divine emperor?" When Ji Tianqing was in seclusion in the Divine Tower, White Dragon guarded the Divine Tower while Black Dragon carried him on the road. Ji Tianqing came out of seclusion an hour ago. Hearing White Dragon's question, Ji Tianqing said with a smile, "I have refined the Godhead fragments of 3 batches of divine emperors. The number of laws I have mastered has reached 190, which is comparable to that of a divine emperor in the 9th stage. As for the 4th stage, I won't be able to reach it in a short time." Chapter 2995. Ji Tianqing's answer made Bai Long feel a little regretful. Although Master has mastered as many as 190 laws, I reckon that in the entire Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, there is no second person who is as strong as you. But after all, you are still a lower Divine Lord and have not broken through to the middle Divine Lord. Entering the Imperial City this time, you will face the Divine Kingdom's top experts. Moreover, the various forces are likely to join forces to deal with you. If you can break through to the 4th stage, we will have nothing to worry about. Bai Long sighed with some regret and muttered softly, "If not, you don't have to be protective of the fairer sex. If you can keep that blood saber, our chances of winning will be much higher." Ji Tianqing glanced at him and asked with a faint smile, "Do you think that I returned the blood saber to Xue Lin because I am protective of the fairer sex?" Cough cough. Bai Long coughed twice to hide his embarrassment and said with a smile, "No, Master, that is called the demeanor of a powerhouse. You don't want to take advantage of others." Ji Tianqing rolled his eyes at him, "I'm too lazy to talk to you. Let Burial of Heaven explain." Burial of Heaven's deep and powerful voice immediately sounded in Bai Long's mind. Xue Lin's blood saber was originally a monarch-grade artifact of the demon clan. It was transformed from the sharp teeth of the ancient demon king. After 10,000 years of killing and blood infiltration, the demon saber has long turned into a killing blade. The blood aura is too strong. Even Xue Lin was infected by the blood saber's killing aura and her soul became chaotic. As a result, her personality was erratic and unpredictable. Moreover, that blood saber is destined to not become a monarch-grade artifact. If I refine it and completely integrate it, it will affect my quality and power. In the future, it will be even more difficult to restore it to a monarch-grade artifact. After listening to Burial of Heaven's explanation, Bai Long suddenly understood and nodded. You mean that the blood saber has caused Xue Lin to have a split personality? The blood saber's material and power are special. It is destined to not become a monarch-grade artifact, so you don't like it? Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, you can say that. Bai Long hurriedly looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, Master, is that witch really suffering from schizophrenia? Ji Tianqing nodded and said calmly, yes, but it's not too serious at the moment. Then why did you return the blood knife to her? Her condition will definitely get worse in the future, White Dragon asked, puzzled. Ji Tianqing frowned and said, the Burial of Heaven can't devour the blood saber, so why would I keep the blood saber? Of course he had to return it to her. The matter with the blood sword sect wasn't over yet. If she lost her blood saber, how could she protect herself from so many experts? As for whether or not her schizophrenia will worsen in the future, what does that have to do with me? Bai Long rubbed his chin and said with a playful smile, Master, according to this disciple's understanding, you are not such a heartless person. That demoness is obviously interested in you. Don't you plan to help her? Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly. And then? Bai Long smiled and said in an even more strange tone, and then, if you do her a favor again, she will definitely be unable to resist and repay you with her body. As long as the red flag at home doesn't fall, the colorful flag outside flutters, he. Ji Tianqing frowned and narrowed his eyes. The corner of his mouth hooked into a cold smile and was about to make things difficult for him. At this time, a cold and disdainful voice suddenly sounded. He, scum. The cold voice came from Qian Yu, full of disdain and disdain. Ji Tianqing's brows relaxed and he looked at Bai Long with a playful smile. Did you hear that? Bai Long didn't dare to talk back to his master. He angrily scolded Qian Yu, you little fox. Instead of cultivating in seclusion, you eavesdrop on our master and disciple conversation. You disappoint me. Qian Yu's voice was still cold and full of disdain. You like being a scum, so don't lead old Ji astray. Besides, why are you so disappointed all the time? Hey! You stinking fox! Bai Long rolled up his sleeves and went into the divine pagoda to argue with Qian Yu. Ji Tianqing dismissed it with a smile, no longer paying attention to their quarrel, and continued to meditate. Time passed quickly. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, soon, 4 days had passed. On the morning of the 5th day, Ji Tianqing finally arrived at the imperial city. When he was still 1,000 miles away from the imperial city, he put away the black dragon and traveled alone. Whoosh! He sped across the sky and looked at the imperial city 1,000 miles away. The weather was clear and the sun rose from the east. Under the golden sun, the imperial city exuded an ancient and majestic aura. It was an ancient and majestic city with 10,000 years of history, located in the Changfeng mountain range. The Changfeng mountain range ran from north to south and stretched for nearly 10 million miles. It was one of the best divine ranges in the divine nation. The imperial city was located in the most majestic area of the mountain range. It was also the area with the most divine power. This majestic city was located on a towering mountain range of 10,000 miles. The mountain was like an ancient divine dragon lying on the ground. The majestic city was like a dragon on its back, commanding the wind and rain as it looked down on all living beings. It was different from other prefectural cities, which were all square in shape. This majestic city was built along the mountain ridge in the shape of a long strip. Its width was between 50 to 100 miles, but its length was more than 500 miles. Such a majestic city was large enough to accommodate 8 million people and deities. The ancient city walls were hundreds of feet tall and glowed with a black and red luster. One could clearly see the mottled traces of time. There were many tall buildings and palaces in the city. Countless residences and buildings were arranged in picturesque disorder. Under the morning sun, the glazed and golden tiles of the palaces reflected dazzling light. Ji Tianqing released his divine sense to investigate and saw that in the sky around him, there were many gods and powerhouses flying toward the imperial city like him. These gods and experts came from all over the divine nation. They were of different races and attire. There were the blood flame god race, the raging flame god race, the crimson blood god race, the three-eyed god race, the indigo god race, the heavenly jade race, and other races. Most of the experts rode on mighty divine beasts or sat in luxurious carriages pulled by rare and exotic beasts. A small number of experts and commoners rode on divine ships or walked on air. Ji Tianqing knew that the flow of people in the imperial city was usually very large. The divine blood ceremony was about to begin. Countless gods would come to watch the ceremony. Thus, the number of people entering and leaving the imperial city was several times greater than usual. He had originally been considering whether he should disguise himself before entering the imperial city. But on second thought, he realized that only a few experts and sects knew his identity and background. The vast majority of people did not recognize him. Even if they passed by him, they would not give him a second glance. Even if he disguised himself, he would not be able to fool those who wanted to find him. Thus, there was no need to disguise himself. Thus, he openly landed outside the northern city gate and waited in line to enter the city. As soon as the 1,000-foot-tall city gate opened, a line of 100 people had already formed in front of it. Many gods and experts obediently took out their identity cards and waited in line to enter the city. No matter where the experts came from, they did not dare to cause trouble in front of the imperial guards. Ji Tianqing had only been in line for a short while when 4 silver-armored imperial guards suddenly walked out of the city gate and stopped him. Chapter 2996. There were more than 100 silver-armored imperial guards at the city gate. They had an iron-blooded aura as they stared at everyone who entered the city. The moment Ji Tianqing appeared, the captain of the imperial guards stared at him. After observing him carefully and confirming that it was him, the captain personally led 3 imperial guards to stop him. "You are Tianqing?" The captain of the imperial guards, who was burly and had a full beard, stared at Ji Tianqing with his red eyes and asked expressionlessly. The 3 imperial guards spread out and surrounded Ji Tianqing. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. It was as if they were trying to catch a fugitive. The surrounding citizens and experts immediately took a few steps back to avoid being implicated. At the same time, everyone looked at Ji Tianqing with vigilance and curiosity. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, "That's me." The captain of the imperial guards nodded slightly and said in a dignified tone, "Please come with us." Ji Tianqing gave him a deep look, but he didn't refuse or resist. He only nodded. Then, he followed behind the captain of the imperial guards and was surrounded by 3 other imperial guards. They crossed the city gate and entered the imperial city. The surrounding citizens who were watching the show were curious and gloating. They started to whisper and discuss. "Who is that kid? Why is he being targeted by the imperial guards? It seems that he is a fugitive from the imperial city." "Very likely. Every year, there will be a few foolish fugitives who think that they can fool others and try to sneak into the imperial city. In the end, they are all seen through by the imperial guards. He is being taken away by the imperial guards. That kid is in trouble." However, a few Sir God experts in the crowd frowned and pondered. Their expressions were complicated. Their strength and status were higher. Of course, they would not be as superficial as the ordinary citizens. Just now, they all heard the captain of the Imperial Guard say, "Please." On the surface, the captain of the Imperial Guard's attitude was cold and dignified. But in reality, he was not disrespectful or offensive to Ji Tianqing. Moreover, they only took Ji Tianqing away. They did not escort or tie him up. If they really wanted to catch a fugitive, how could they be so gentle? When the divine lords noticed this, they could not help but be curious and speculate. Who was Tianqing? Suddenly, one of the divine monarchs thought of something that happened recently. Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. She and Legend's expressions changed dramatically, and they exclaimed, "Is it him? How is this possible?" His exclamation attracted the attention of the people around him. Many commoners and a few divine lords looked at him and began asking questions. "Senior, who was that kid just now? Brother, do you know that white-robed brat? That kid is from a foreign race. Did he do something wrong?" The divine lord powerhouse remained silent, his expression solemn and indifferent. When everyone asked too many questions, he really couldn't stand the disturbance and endured it. He couldn't help but scold, "Stop trying to get to the bottom of this matter. That young master's identity isn't something that we can investigate." Seeing this divine lord's solemn expression and solemn tone, the crowd realized the seriousness of the matter and did not dare to pester him any further. The captain of the Imperial Guards and 3 other Imperial Guards led Ji Tianqing into the royal city. They walked along the wide bluestone road for 1,000 feet and turned into a secluded alley. Then, the captain of the Imperial Guards asked the 3 Imperial Guards to leave and faced Ji Tianqing alone. He cupped his hands at Ji Tianqing and said respectfully, "Young Master Tianqing, there were too many people at the city gate just now. I had no choice but to offend you. Please forgive me." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly, his expression was calm as he said, "Let's get down to business. Who wants to see me?" The captain of the Imperial Guards looked around and saw that there was no one following them within 1,000 feet. Then, he replied cautiously, "My master invites you to meet him. He has something important to tell you. Lead the way." Ji Tianqing vaguely guessed something and agreed. The captain of the Imperial Guards did not waste any more time. He quickly took out a monarch-level divine talisman and poured his divine power into it. Swoosh! The golden divine talisman ignited and burst out with dazzling white light, engulfing him and Ji Tianqing. The space distorted, and the 2 figures disappeared into thin air. In the next moment, Ji Tianqing and the captain of the Imperial Guards teleported hundreds of miles away and appeared in a manor in the northern part of the city. This manor occupied an area of 10,000 feet in radius. It was built beautifully and exceptionally luxuriously. There were rows upon rows of palaces and residences in the surroundings, but the environment was very quiet and peaceful, and the divine power was extremely abundant. It was easy to imagine that such a luxurious residence in the royal city would definitely be expensive. Most likely, only the major powers and nobles would be able to possess them. The captain of the Imperial Guards led Ji Tianqing through the garden and corridors to the rockery beside the lake. And friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. NBSP, he cast a spell to dispel the illusory formation and opened a secret door. Only then did he enter the dark tunnel. Following the winding passageway, the 2 of them arrived at the door of a secret room at the bottom of the lake. The captain of the Imperial Guards bowed towards the door and respectfully said, "Master, young Master Tianqing is here." From the pitch-black door of the secret room, a dignified male voice came, "Invite him in." The captain of the Imperial Guards responded and cast a spell to dispel the formation, opening the door of the secret room. Then, he stood guard at the door of the secret room and gestured for Ji Tianqing to enter. Ji Tianqing stepped through the stone door and entered the dark secret room. Bang! The heavy stone door closed. The secret room with a radius of 100 feet was very quiet. The floor and walls were engraved with divine formations, and the five-colored divine power condensed into threads and clouds, illusory and blurred. Ji Tianqing looked around and saw a purple jade stone table and two white jade chairs in the middle of the secret room. A middle-aged man wearing a golden dragon robe and a golden crown was sitting on the white jade chair. In front of him was an exquisite teapot and two exquisite teacups. "Young Master Tianqing, please sit." The golden-robed man stood up and greeted, looking at Ji Tianqing with a smile. This person was well-built and had a dignified appearance. His brows were filled with righteousness, but he did not pretend to be dignified. He had a natural affinity. Ji Tianqing walked to the table and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Third Prince." Clearly, the golden-robed man was Ning Qinggong's brother-in-law, the third son of the current king, Duanmu Yannian. The third prince saw that Ji Tianqing was neither servile nor overbearing and was still unfathomable. He could not help but sigh. For half a year, this little prince has only heard of young master's various deeds and has already felt admiration. Now that I have seen young master in person, I am even more amazed. You are truly extraordinary. Third prince is too kind, Ji Tianqing said politely. The third prince extended his hand and said, "Come, sit down and drink some tea." He made a "please" gesture with his left hand and held the teapot in his right as he personally poured tea for Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing nodded and sat down, taking a sip of tea. "I have just arrived at the capital, and the third prince is meeting with me in secret. Could something big have happened?" The third prince nodded slightly, and the smile on his face disappeared. He said with a heavy expression, "Yes, something big has happened. After the divine blood ceremony, the king will appoint a crown prince." Chapter 2997. Ji Tianqing's temperament was relatively straightforward. After meeting with the third prince, he did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Unexpectedly, the third prince was even more straightforward than him and directly threw out a heavy bomb. Even though Ji Tianqing's state of mind was as steady as Mount Tai and his state of mind was as still as an ancient well, he could not help but frown. "This is too sudden." Ji Tianqing frowned and said in a dignified tone, "All these years, the three princes have been secretly competing for the throne. This is also known by the high-level forces and powerhouses. Everyone understands the monarch's attitude. He wants to observe for a few more years to see the talents and characters of the three princes before making a decision." But why did the monarch suddenly announce the result? Appointing the crown prince is equivalent to announcing the monarch's decision. As long as the monarch is alive and the kingdom of God is not in chaos, the crown prince will be the crown prince. After the monarch abdicates, the crown prince will automatically succeed the throne. There are no twists and turns or accidents to speak of. The third prince picked up the teacup and took a deep sip. He gently shook his head and said, "Logically speaking, Father is in his prime and the kingdom of God is very stable. There is no need for him to be so anxious and there is no reason for him to make this decision." Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement and said slowly, "Unless the monarch is under some kind of threat or is under some kind of pressure." The third prince frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head and said, "This does not make sense." Ji Tianqing asked, "Then do you know who the monarch is going to appoint as the crown prince?" The third prince stared at him and said, "I have always heard that young master has excellent strategy and great foresight. Please make a guess." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said in a playful tone, "Since the third prince said so, the answer is basically confirmed. First of all, the monarch's choice is definitely not you. Otherwise, you would not be so anxious. Instead, you should be thinking about how to stabilize the position of the crown prince and suppress the other two princes." The third prince nodded and looked at him with shining eyes, indicating for him to continue. Ji Tianqing raised 2 fingers and continued, "Second of all, the monarch's choice is not the second prince. Because the second prince has always advocated for the crown prince and is the most popular among the people. He has the most power and background. If he were to become the crown prince, it would be an expected outcome. But you've fought with him for many years, so you must have a lot of information on him. You have a good chance of winning." Hearing this, the third prince narrowed his eyes, a look of deep shock flashing through his eyes. The fact that Ji Tianqing was able to pick out the second prince had already surprised him. He did not expect Ji Tianqing to be able to guess the trump card in his hand and the way to deal with it. This made everyone have a whole new level of respect for him. Ji Tianqing withdrew his finger and said with a smile, "So, it goes without saying who will be the crown prince." Perhaps no one would have thought that the crown prince that the monarch was going to appoint would be the most low-key and inconspicuous little prince. It was precisely because he was the youngest that he acted the most low-key. He had never revealed his ambition, nor did he have a powerful background. Therefore, you and the second prince both ignored him and did not treat him as a competitor. On the contrary, all of you even tried to win him over and rope him in, wanting him to become your helper. But in the end, the 2 of you who had the most hope became the losers. He didn't seem to be a threat, but he was the biggest winner. So much so that when you heard the answer, you felt that it was both absurd and terrifying. Moreover, you only just realized that you did not understand him well enough. Even if you wanted to deal with him, you didn't know where to start. Ji Tianqing's tone was solemn as he spoke frankly with assurance. Hearing this, the third prince's blood boiled, his eyes flashing. When Ji Tianqing finished speaking, he actually stood up and couldn't help but applaud and praise. "Good. Well said. That's great." The third prince was excited, not concealing the excitement in his heart in his admiration for Ji Tianqing. "Young master is indeed a great talent. Your analysis is thorough, meticulous, and accurate." He was very clear that it had not even been a year since Ji Tianqing had appeared in Qingshan City. In such a short time, Ji Tianqing had risen step by step and finally arrived at the capital. The third prince knew that he was powerful and ruthless. The destruction of the Blood Sword sect was the best proof. But he did not expect that Ji Tianqing had never come into contact with princes, royalty, or power. Yet, he was able to point out the pros and cons in a single sentence, as well as the hidden key points. It was as if he had seen everything with his own eyes and understood everything. The third prince was extremely shocked and impressed by such terrifying analytical and reasoning abilities. He even suspected that this young master Tianqing was really a young genius and not an old monster that had lived for tens of thousands of years. After a long while, the third prince gradually calmed down. He stared at Ji Tianqing, cupped his hands, and solemnly said, "It is this humble prince's honor to be acquainted with such a great talent as young master Tianqing. Now that the great calamity is imminent, although this humble prince has made all sorts of preparations and methods, I still do not feel confident. I hope that young master can lend a helping hand and help this humble prince reverse the situation and stabilize the situation." The third prince was so impressed by Ji Tianqing's intelligence that he solemnly asked for his help. If others were to see this scene, they would probably be dumbstruck. To have a respected prince treat a wise man with respect and sincerely ask for help was the lifelong dream of every strategist in the world. However, Ji Tianqing shook his head and refused. "Third prince is too serious. This lord is just a country bumpkin. How could I have the ability and methods to reverse the situation?" The third prince thought he was being modest, so he bowed again and said sincerely, "Young master's talent and learning are obvious to all the princes and great sections. This humble prince sincerely invites young master to assist me and is willing to make you the chief of staff. In the future, if the situation is reversed and this humble prince is able to inherit the throne, you will definitely be made prime minister. This is this humble prince's promise to you." The third prince's words were powerful and sonorous. If it were any other divine monarch, they definitely would not be able to resist this temptation, let alone refuse the third prince's sincerity. However, Ji Tianqing still shook his head and said with a chuckle, "Third prince misunderstands. This lord is just a passerby who yearns for unfettered freedom and will not be reluctant to part with the mortal world. As for your country's struggle for the throne, in the end, it has nothing to do with this lord. No matter who becomes the crown prince and who inherits the throne, it is the Duanmu family's business." Since Ji Tianqing had already made it so clear, the third prince naturally knew that his mind was set and that it would be very difficult to change it. However, the third prince was still very unwilling. He frowned and thought for a moment, then said sincerely, "Young Master Tianqing, this king has also heard Patriarch Ning say that you have a free and easy personality and yearn for freedom. Now that you have refused this king's invitation, it is within expectations. However, you must know that you and second royal brother have already formed a deep enmity that is very difficult to resolve. The Blood Sword sect is also the fifth prince's arm, but it was also destroyed by you. Second prince and fifth prince are like fire and water with you. If they succeed in ascending the throne, they will definitely use all of Divine Nation's power to deal with you. At that time, even if this king shares a common enemy with you and wants to help you resist the storm, I will not be able to do so." Chapter 2998. The third prince tried to persuade Ji Tianqing with emotion and reason. Not only did he play the emotional card, but he also explained the pros and cons and deduced the future situation. If it was anyone else, they would not reject him. However, Ji Tianqing had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion. He was not afraid of how unreasonable, domineering, or cruel the opponent was. He could always fight back in an even more domineering manner. He was only afraid of sincere invitations, pleas, and crying complaints. This made it difficult for him to refuse. In the end, the third prince said everything he needed to say. He even said that he had a young, beautiful, and intelligent daughter. She was only 18 years old this year, and her name was Princess Yinling. Princess Silver Bell was the apple of their eye, and the brightest pearl of the royal family. Ordinary young talents were definitely not worthy of their daughter. Only a peerless genius like Ji Tianqing was qualified to marry Princess Yinling. Ji Tianqing felt his scalp tingle. He was afraid that the third prince would be his father-in-law if he continued to speak. If that was the case, then when he saw Ning Xiyuan again, wouldn't he have to call her cousin? It was so awkward no matter how he thought about it. In the end, Ji Tianqing could not refuse the third prince's kindness. He could only interrupt and say, "Third prince, thank you for thinking so highly of me and trusting me. Unfortunately, I won't be staying in the Divine Kingdom for long, and I can't help you ascend to the throne. However, although I can't be your aide, we can be friends. We can help each other, fight the enemy together, and help you plan." Hearing this, the third prince felt much better. Although it was very regretful that Ji Tianqing could not be used by him and become a general under his command. He knew very well that a genius like Ji Tianqing might not be someone he could control. It was already a good result for them to be friends, watch out for each other, and help each other. Therefore, the third prince cupped his hands and bowed to Ji Tianqing, sincerely thanking him. Ji Tianqing hurriedly returned the bow. The two of them exchanged a few pleasantries before sitting down to chat. Without talking about government affairs or important matters, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. The third prince took the initiative to ask, "If this king is not wrong, young master, you came to the capital this time for the divine blood ceremony, right?" "That's right." Ji Tianqing did not hide it. The third prince smiled faintly and said, "With young master's strength, winning the championship in the martial arts competition is already a foregone conclusion. However, the rules of the martial arts competition were complicated. They had to be selected layer by layer, and it would take a long time. This king will arrange for you to enter the top 20 and participate in the last few rounds of the competition. This will save you a lot of trouble. This was a classic example of under-the-table manipulation. However, the third prince did not have any psychological burden. After all, Ji Tianqing's strength was too strong. He would definitely sweep away all his opponents. Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "Thank you." The third prince continued, "This prince heard that after the blood sword sect was destroyed, fifth brother flew into a rage and smashed many things in the residence, even killing several attendants. Fifth brother had always been low-key and steady in his actions. He never showed his emotions on his face. In all these years, this is the first time I've seen him so angry. It's easy to imagine that before you even arrived at the capital, he was already plotting how to get rid of you." After a pause, he continued, "There's also second brother. Although you don't have any direct enmity with him, he's the princess of Skywind. However, Princess Tianfeng was his most trusted subordinate. She was also the most important chess piece in his network of forces in the north. In the end, you killed Princess Skywind and did not receive any punishment from the king. The position of Princess Skywind fell into the hands of an old noble of the neutral faction. This is a great loss to second brother. With second brother's vengeful personality, he most likely won't let you off." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "This king knows. Apart from the two princes, there are also other forces that want to get rid of me. Right now, the capital is like the mouth of a giant beast, ready to swallow me at any time." Seeing that he was so clear about the situation, the third prince took the opportunity to persuade him, "Since young master also understands your situation, then this king will be frank. I hope that young master can stay in this king's mansion temporarily. You can rest in peace and avoid unnecessary trouble." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "No need. This will inevitably bring more danger and trouble to the third marquis mansion." The third prince's eyes were somewhat dim. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid that's not the only reason. Most importantly, you don't want to get too close to this king, right?" Of course, he could only think about this in his heart. Everyone had a tacit understanding. If he said it out loud, it would be meaningless. But the third prince was still not satisfied. He continued, "Since young master feels that it's not convenient to stay in the third marquis mansion, then why don't you stay here? This Longwind courtyard is one of my mansions. It has all the necessary facilities. Maids, guards, and servants are also fully equipped. Your safety and comfort are guaranteed. Moreover, this Longwind courtyard is not far from my mansion. It's only 50 miles, so it's convenient to travel." Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. He thought of something and asked, "Right, is there any news about Miss Ning?" Calculating the time, she should have broken through to the Divine Lord realm and should be arriving at the capital soon, right? At the mention of Ning Siyuan, the third prince immediately revealed a gratified smile. "Aya, this prince forgot about such an important matter. Before we meet, this king still wants to report the good news to young master." "That's right. As you expected, that girl Siyuan successfully broke through to the Divine Lord realm 10 days ago. After recuperating at home for 7 days, she rushed to the capital. Calculating the time, she should be arriving tomorrow." The third prince stared at Ji Tianqing and said in a solemn tone, "Speaking of Siyuan, before this king came to see you, the queen consort repeatedly urged me to thank you in person. Thank you for providing medicine and pill formulas to resolve the Ning family's bloodline, Heavenly Bane. From now on, the Ning family descendants will no longer be tortured by Heavenly Bane. Each of them will have a boundless future. Not only did you save the Ning family from calamity, but you also sent the Ning family from hell to heaven, giving the Ning family a chance to soar. To the Ning family, you are a great benefactor of immeasurable merit. The Ning family descendants will forever remember this in their hearts. The queen consort has often said that when you come to the capital, she will definitely hold a banquet to welcome you." Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded, his tone indifferent as he said, "It's just a small matter, not worth mentioning." He wasn't bragging, but it really wasn't difficult for him. The third prince was even more shocked. He laughed heartily and said, "A genius is a genius, indeed different from the rest. The heavenly bane that has troubled the Ning family for thousands of years is just a small matter to you. This is the difference between us. To say something presumptuous, this king sometimes fantasizes that this king can be as extraordinary as young master. Even if I have to give up the throne and the identity of a prince, I am willing to do so." Ji Tianqing only smiled slightly and didn't comment. However, the voice of the burial of heaven sounded in his mind and said disdainfully, "This guy really knows how to dream. A mere prince and monarch in exchange for the soul of a divine king? Ha! Even the great Yan Empire's emperor isn't fit to carry our shoes." Chapter 2999. A person's manner of speech and bearing depended on their status and knowledge. A noble figure like the third prince was naturally at the top of the Bloodfire divine kingdom. But in front of Ji Tianqing and the burial of heaven, he was still a frog at the bottom of the well. How could a divine lord who had never walked out of the great Yan Empire know the vastness of the Tianbei region, the vastness of the boundless heaven continent, and the vastness of the divine realm? Ji Tianqing definitely would not refute the third prince. That would be losing his bearing. The small talk was over. The third prince exhorted Ji Tianqing again before he took his leave. Of course, he left quietly. Ji Tianqing stayed in the Longwind court temporarily and left the secret room to enter the main hall. He used his divine sense to observe the entire house. Being vigilant in times of peace was his habit. Not only did he have to understand the layout of the Longwind court and the distribution of people, but he also had to understand the strength of the array defense. In a short moment, he observed clearly. The Longwind court with a radius of 10,000 feet was enough to accommodate a large family of several thousand people. But there were only 400 people living here. Among them, 300 were guards, and more than 100 were servants and maids. 2 monarch-grade high-grade great arrays enveloped the entire house. The guards were divided into 3 teams, patrolling in shifts, day and night. On the surface, the Longwind court's defensive power was not weak. It was difficult for ordinary people to sneak in. But Ji Tianqing was clear that this could not stop a high divine lord at all. He was about to personally take action and modify the 2 great arrays. At this time, a white-bearded old man in a purple robe and a square turban hat brought 4 experts into the main hall. Old man Lai Fu pays respect to young master. Subordinate pays respect to young master. The white-bearded old man took the lead to bow. The 4 young experts followed closely behind. Ji Tianqing raised his head and looked. Glancing at Lai Fu, he guessed his identity. 6th level Divine Lord Realm, a veteran middle Divine Lord. He should be the housekeeper of the Longwind court. As for the 4 young experts, there were 3 strong and tall young men and a tall and muscular red-haired woman. These 4 people's strengths were all around 3rd level Divine Lord Realm. They were the cream of the crop among low-ranked Divine Lords. Ji Tianqing took his seat at the head of the table and said calmly, "Everyone, please dispense with the formalities. Lai Fu, please speak your mind." Lai Fu and the others thanked him before straightening their backs to speak. Reporting to young master, this old man is the housekeeper of Changfeng courtyard, responsible for guarding the courtyard and managing the internal affairs. The Lord had already instructed that the young master would stay here for a while. But no matter what, you are His Majesty's guest and they are His Majesty's servants. As long as it's your order, we will unconditionally obey and will not go against your will. Moreover, this old man can guarantee with his life that Sir Immortal Zhenhong is pure and has never had intimate interactions with any man. Even your history of romance is blank. Lai Fu's words were a bit explicit. Not only did he imply that Ji Tianqing could do whatever he wanted, but he also guaranteed that Sir Immortal Zhenhong was original. The 3 guard captains immediately lowered their heads even more, hiding deep helplessness and pain in their eyes. Sir Immortal Zhenhong's expression still did not change, but his eyes were cold and indifferent, without any emotional fluctuations. It was as if she was just a puppet. It was a posture of resignation. She suppressed all her will and absolutely obeyed orders. Ji Tianqing suddenly sneered and slapped Lai Fu's face from a distance. Slap. The crisp sound of the slap rang out. Lai Fu covered his cheek and fell to the ground, but he did not dare to get up. He hurriedly knelt down and apologized. Ji Tianqing coldly shouted, "You old dog, you are so good at currying favor and taking advantage of others. What kind of person do you think I am? What do you want to do? Pimp? Or is this a honey trap that the 3rd prince asked you to carry out?" His voice was not loud, nor was it angry. But it contained a soul-stirring majesty, fiercely intimidating Lai Fu and the 4 Sir Immortals. The entire hall was shrouded in an invisible aura. Lai Fu knelt on the ground, trembling, kowtowing and begging for mercy. The 3 guard captains and Sir Immortal Zhenhong also lowered their heads in fear, not daring to breathe. However, Ji Tianqing's reaction and attitude made the 3 guard captains secretly relieved, lowering their vigilance and vigilance. Sir Immortal Zhenhong was the same. His cold and indifferent eyes eased a lot. Seeing Lai Fu's frightened and pitiful appearance, she couldn't bear it. She hurriedly bowed and said to Ji Tianqing, "Please calm down, young Master Tianqing. Uncle Lai Fu did not dare to offend you, nor did he mean to blaspheme you. It was Sir Immortal Zhenhong who failed to fulfill his duty as a guard captain. Sir Immortal Zhenhong is willing to accompany young master and ask for forgiveness with practical actions." Chapter 3000. Sir Zhenhong's reaction was within everyone's expectations. The 3 guard captains and Lai Fu all knew her nature. She was cold and resolute on the outside and obeyed all orders. She had never been weak or delicate. No matter how difficult it was, she would never say a word. But in fact, her personality was simple, straightforward, and kind. Lai Fu took good care of them and treated them like his own nephew. The 4 of them were also very respectful to Lai Fu and always called him uncle. Sir Zhenhong didn't want Lai Fu to be punished, so he offered to serve Ji Tianqing. Using practical actions to atone for his sins was a very obvious hint. She had already mustered up a lot of courage to say these words. Because she knew that sooner or later, she would be offered to a big shot and used as a bargaining chip. This was the destined ending. It was also the greatest role she could play in repaying the 3rd prince. After all, she had almost lost her life back then and the 3rd prince had saved her. The moment she was saved, she made a vow to the 3rd prince. She would have to pay it back sooner or later. Rather than wait for the future and be offered to an unknown big shot. Perhaps he was old and ugly, perhaps he was despicable and sinister, perhaps he had strange habits that made people want to vomit, she would be more willing to offer herself to this young master in front of her. After all, although this young master was of a foreign race, he was extremely handsome and divine. Especially the unfathomable and invisible divine power on him that was even more awe-inspiring and worshipping. That special temperament could disregard any race and create a fatal attraction. Therefore, Sir Zhenhong thought to himself. If she could offer herself to this young Master Tianqing, she wouldn't feel wronged and could also repay the 3rd prince for saving her life. It was the best of both worlds. However, Sir God Zhenhong's words caused the atmosphere in the hall to become even weirder. Lai Fu and the 3 guard captains had complicated looks in their eyes as they muttered in their hearts. Zhenhong, Zhenhong. I have already angered young Master Tianqing. He obviously doesn't like women. Why do you still want to anger him? For a noble big shot like him, this is humiliating him. Zhenhong. You've changed. Are you tempted by this young master because he is very powerful and very valiant? Ah! My heart hurts. My innocent Zhen Hong actually fell in love with him at first sight. Zhen Hong. You are too kind. You are indeed the goddess of my dreams. Don't worry, even if this young master cheated on your feelings, he will abandon you after a few days. You are still pure in my heart. I will still love you and accept you. Lai Fu and the 3 bodyguard captains each had their own thoughts. Some were worried and anxious, some were heartbroken, and some were helpless and desperate. Of course, there was also an infatuated person who was waiting to take over. However, Ji Tianxing stared at Sir God Zhen Hong expressionlessly, exerting great pressure on him. Do you really want to follow me? Engulfed by his divine might, Sir God Zhen Hong was under great pressure. His body trembled slightly and his divine soul trembled. However, his willpower was very strong. He struggled to look straight at Ji Tianxing and replied with clear eyes, yes. Ji Tianxing was slightly surprised and a little surprised. He secretly used the divine eye secret technique and his eyes turned golden. He stared at Zhen Hong and carefully observed him. After a while, he suddenly understood and thought to himself, I see. No wonder he is so special and has such distinctive characteristics. He probably doesn't even know this secret himself, right? Ji Tianxing originally wanted to refuse, but he suddenly changed his mind. Good. I will give you this opportunity. As his voice fell, he withdrew his invisible divine might. Sir God Zhen Hong's pressure suddenly disappeared. He immediately let out a long breath, as if relieved of a heavy burden. Lai Fu and the 3 bodyguard captains were stunned, and their expressions were a little strange. Of course, the 4 of them muttered in their hearts. Young Master Tianxing just acted like he didn't get close to women and spoke righteously. Why did he accept Zhen Hong's service in the blink of an eye? Could it be that he didn't notice Zhen Hong's special temperament before and was attracted to him again just now? Zhen Hong, this boy is too hypocritical. You were fooled. First he pretended to be upright and virtuous, then he revealed his powerful strength, and finally he got you. This was the most common technique used by noble young masters to pick up girls. Zhen Hong, you are too naive. I am very disappointed in you. Although the result made me very sad, my infatuation will not change. After you are hurt and abandoned by him, I will accompany and comfort you for the rest of my life. Unlike the 4 men, Sir God Zhen Hong didn't have so many thoughts in his mind. After she calmed down, she hurriedly bowed and said, Thank you for your kindness, young master. Ji Tianxing didn't say anything more. He waved his hand and said, Today's matter is over. You all can leave. Zhen Hong, go tidy up my bedroom. I want to rest. Lai Fu and the 3 bodyguard captains were about to bow and say goodbye. When they suddenly heard this sentence, their expressions changed and their hearts thumped. It can't be, right? It's only noon, and he asked Zhen Hong to serve him in bed. Tidy up the bedroom and rest in the daytime. This boy is really impatient. The ancients didn't deceive me. The more serious a person looks on the surface, the more dirty and unrestrained his heart is. The 3 bodyguard captains' hearts seemed to have been trampled by 10,000 alpacas. Lai Fu also had a complicated mood. He hurriedly left the hall. Sir God Zhen Hong said yes and went to tidy up the bedroom with a restless mood. Only Ji Tianxing was left in the hall. Silence was restored. Whoosh! A white light flashed. White Dragon, who couldn't bear the loneliness of cultivation, appeared beside Ji Tianxing. He looked outside the hall and saw the backs of the 3 bodyguard captains leaving, revealing a playful smile. Master, I dare to bet that those 2 guard captains definitely regard you as a mortal enemy. In their minds, you are about to put a hat on them, and grasslands will grow on their heads. Ji Tianxing looked indifferent, frowned and asked, why are there 2 and not 3? White Dragon laughed even more mockingly and said in a playful tone, that's because the 3rd bodyguard captain is a bootlicker. He would rather take over and continue to bootlicker. Speaking of this, he shook his head sympathetically and sighed, unfortunately, that boy hasn't heard a word. A bootlicker, has nothing. Ji Tianqing glanced at him and said with a dignified expression, you don't cultivate all day, why do you talk so much nonsense? You can't bear the loneliness and don't want to cultivate? White Dragon smiled and said, sure enough, I can't hide from Master's discerning eyes. Recently, I've been stuck in the 9th level of the Heavenly God realm and have encountered a bottleneck. Moreover, the 2 Masters' wives are also stuck in the half-step Divine Lord realm. And Junior Sister has also been stuck in the 8th level for a long time. I think that everyone has been cultivating in seclusion for too long, so it's appropriate to relax and strike a balance between work and rest. Ji Tianqing turned to look at him and asked, you mean, everyone should stop cultivating and stay in Changfeng Courtyard to rest for a while? White Dragon quickly nodded and said, yes. Before, you were always on the move and the situation was very dangerous, so no one mentioned this matter. Now that we are in the capital, it is more prosperous, and you are safe, so it's time for everyone to relax. Chapter 3001. It wasn't that Ji Tianqing hadn't thought about it before. But he already had an answer. And it was no. However, White Dragon had brought it up. Of course, he couldn't ignore it. He still had to ask for everyone's opinion. Moreover, he had always been a loner. This caused some unnecessary misunderstandings between the Ning family, the 3rd prince, Lai Fu, and Zhen Hong. He thought that if Yun Yao and Ji Ku were by his side, they should be able to avoid those misunderstandings. After all, any woman would feel ashamed when she saw Yun Yao and Ji Ku, right? Okay, I'll go to the space-time distortion to see them and ask for their opinions. Ji Tianqing made up his mind. He left the hall with White Dragon and went to the residence. When he and White Dragon arrived at the residence, Sir God Zhenhong had already tidied up the bedroom. The spacious and warm bedroom was not only spotless, but also filled with the elegant fragrance of flowers. The guards and maids outside the door had already been dismissed by Sir God Zhenhong. She was the only one left in the room, waiting anxiously. When Ji Tianqing and White Dragon stepped into the bedroom, they saw that she had already changed into a soft silk dress. Her red hair was loose and hung down to her waist. At this moment, she was not as valiant as before. Instead, she had a charming temperament. She was sitting on the edge of the bed with her hands supporting her chin. She stared at her feet with a complicated look in her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Ji Tianqing suddenly felt awkward and had to stop. White Dragon was stunned for a moment. Then, he revealed a naughty smile and transmitted his voice to Ji Tianqing, Master, I suddenly need to pee. I'll take my leave now. I won't disturb you anymore. With that, he turned around and was about to leave. Ji Tianqing glared at him angrily. Although he didn't say anything, White Dragon understood what he meant. At this moment, Sir God Zhenhong heard the footsteps and came back to her senses. She turned her head and saw Ji Tianqing and White Dragon standing at the door. They were looking at her with strange expressions. She was also stunned on the spot. She looked at Ji Tianqing and White Dragon with a complicated expression. What is young Master Tianqing trying to do? Why did she bring a stranger here? Don't tell me, he and that white-haired man, want me to serve them? Ah! He's clearly an elegant young master, how can he be so disgusting? This thought flashed through Zhenhong's mind. His body suddenly trembled, and his heart was filled with fear. She subconsciously stood up and clutched her dress tightly with both hands. With a nervous expression, she said, Young Master Tianqing, this servant suddenly feels unwell. I'm afraid I can't serve you. I'll take my leave now. As she spoke, she took a step forward in a panic and was about to escape. Stop! However, Ji Tianqing shouted coldly with an expressionless face and stopped her. Zhen Hong's body trembled. He could only stop and look down at the ground. The panic in her heart intensified, and she did not dare to raise her head to look at Ji Tianqing's expression. As soon as she thought of the terrifying scene that might occur, she felt endless regret. Unexpectedly, what she expected did not happen. Ji Tianqing and Bai Long stood at the door. They did not mean to take advantage of her. Moreover, Ji Tianqing looked dignified and ordered, "Put on your clothes. This monarch has something to say to you." Zhen Hong was relieved. She breathed a sigh of relief and quickly put on her dress and shoes. When she returned to her previous dress, her heart was at ease. She respectfully saluted and said, "Please instruct me, young master." Ji Tianqing stared at her majestically and said in a solemn tone, "This monarch doesn't care if you're shouldering a task or being instigated by others. In short, you've all misunderstood. This monarch is clean and has a family. I hope you respect yourself. This is the only time this happened. This monarch can pretend that nothing happened. If you flatter and offer yourself to this monarch again, don't blame this monarch for punishing you severely." Ah! Zhen Hong was stunned on the spot. Her eyes widened in disbelief, and she looked at Ji Tianqing in astonishment. She never thought that things would turn out like this. It turned out that young Master Tianqing did not have any evil thoughts from beginning to end. He was indeed a clean and honest gentleman. It was just that she, Lai Fu, and the others had dirty thoughts. That was why they repeatedly offended young Master Tianqing. Understanding this, Zhen Hong remembered her half-covered appearance just now. She suddenly blushed with shame and wished she could find a hole to hide in. Too shameful. Too shameful. Zhen Hong could not stay a moment longer. Her cheeks and neck were red and hot. Her mind was in a mess. She dizzily bowed and hurriedly excused herself. Then, she ran out of the room like she was escaping. It was not until she was far away from the palace and returned to her residence that she gradually calmed down. Recalling Ji Tianqing's cold and dignified eyes at that time, she vomited blood with shame and indignation. Zhen Hong. How could you be so stupid and impatient? It's over. Your reputation is over. Young Master Tianqing will definitely think that you're only pretending to be noble and pure. In fact, your behavior is improper and your heart is wanton. Even if young Master Tianqing doesn't punish you, how can you face others in the future? Thinking of this, Zhen Hong wanted to cry but had no tears. She even wanted to die. In Ji Tianqing's bedroom, Bai Long could not help but want to laugh out loud. However, he saw that his master was expressionless and cold, so he could only force himself to hold it in. In the end, it was too hard for him to hold it in. He could only keep a straight face, but his shoulders kept shaking. Ji Tianqing sat at the table. He picked up the teapot and brewed a cup of tea. He drank it slowly. Laugh if you want to. It's so hard to hold it in. He took a sip of tea and said indifferently. Pft, ha ha ha. Bai Long could not hold it in anymore. He laughed exaggeratedly. Master, Miss Zhen Hong is too innocent. You didn't see her expression just now. She was completely stunned. At first, she must have thought of something very evil. She was so scared that her face turned pale. Later, when she realized that she had misunderstood, she was so embarrassed that she wanted to bang her head against the wall. Her whole body turned red, like a cooked prawn. How can there be such a straightforward girl? How can you bear to tease her like this? Why don't you take the opportunity to take her in and fulfill her little wish? Anyway, this disciple will help you keep it a secret. I will never let the two of you know. Ji Tianqing put down the teacup and looked at him from the corner of his eyes. He sneered and said, "Is it fun to see her embarrassed? Is it fun to laugh? Ha ha ha. Extreme joy begets sorrow. Just don't cry in a few days. Bai Long's smile froze for a second. He only felt a chill on his back. He hurriedly asked, Master, what do you mean? Ha! Ji Tianqing looked at him and smiled meaningfully. Bai Long was even more panicked. His heart was beating a little faster. He begged pitifully, Master, what are you doing? You won't kill your cutest disciple for Miss Shenhong, right? Ji Tianqing smiled but did not answer. Bai Long's heart was in turmoil. He became more and more panicked. He said with a sad face, Master, this disciple was wrong. This disciple shouldn't be gloating. Please be magnanimous. Since you don't want to leave the divine pagoda, I'll help you solve your cultivation bottlenecks first. Come, tell me about the problems you've encountered. Yun Yao and Ji Kun nodded at the same time and said in unison, you go first. Seeing that the two of them had such tacit understanding, Ji Tianqing smiled and said, Ku, you go first. Thus, Ji Ku recounted the difficulties she had encountered in her cultivation in detail. Although she had also become a peak divine lord 1,000 years ago. Logically speaking, with her cultivation experience, she shouldn't have encountered any problems at the peak divine lord realm. However, in this life, she had inherited the legacy of the divine beast phoenix and cultivated the 5-colored divine fire and dozens of demon Dao divine powers. This was something she had never come into contact with in her previous life. With the memories and experience of a peak divine lord, it was natural for her to encounter a bottleneck when cultivating the peak divine king's divine powers. Fortunately, after she told him all the problems, Ji Tianqing only used 15 minutes to find the corresponding solution in his memory. For problems that could be solved according to the symptoms, he directly said the solution. For problems that couldn't be solved directly, he could also beat around the bush, hint, and enlighten Ji Ku. In this way, Ji Ku saw the clear sky through the clouds and immediately came to a realization. The problems that were difficult to solve previously were immediately solved. The hazy and vague concepts in the past also suddenly became clear. Ji Ku's problem was solved and she became full of confidence. She was confident that she could break through the bottleneck and reach the first level of the Divine Lord realm within 10 days. Ji Ku's problem was solved. It was Yun Yao's turn to talk about the problems she had encountered, as well as the obscure and uncertain perplexities. Originally, she had fused with the 6 divine pearls and awakened most of Goddess Yaoguang's memories. However, what she was currently cultivating was Goddess Yaoguang's divine Dao inheritance, which were all top-notch divine powers and consummate skills. However, there were still some missing memories in her divine soul, and the most important memories had not been awakened. This caused her to occasionally encounter difficulties when comprehending the divine Dao and cultivating king-level divine powers and secret techniques. Chapter 3003. Ji Tianqing listened to Yun Yao's question seriously. It took him 4 hours to come up with a solution. Of course, he had a way to solve most of the problems. He didn't have a targeted and definite solution to some of the problems. However, he could draw inferences and give the most suitable suggestion. As long as Yun Yao tried a few more times, she would definitely be able to solve all the problems. Just like that, Yun Yao's cultivation problem was solved. She was also full of confidence and anticipation that she would be able to break through to the Divine Lord realm in a few days. Ji Tianqing solved their cultivation bottlenecks. Finally, he looked at Ji Wushuang, who was in his arms, and was about to ask her what problem she had encountered. Unexpectedly, Wushuang was lying on his shoulder, quietly in a daze. Her delicate little face revealed a thoughtful expression, as if she was thinking about something. There was also a hint of melancholy in her big, clear eyes. Ji Tianqing, Yun Yao, and the others immediately saw the problem. Shuang, what are you thinking about? Oh right, Shuang didn't say anything for such a long time just now. She was very quiet. I can see that Shuang has something on her mind. Ji Wushuang came back to her senses and quickly shook her head when she saw the 3 pairs of concerned eyes. I'm fine. Don't worry and don't guess blindly. She pouted and revealed an innocent smile. However, she was still young and too innocent. How could she hide it from Ji Tianqing, Yin Yao, and Ji Ku? Ji Tianqing looked at her lovingly and scratched her little nose with his finger. He asked, Shuang, what were you thinking about just now? Tell Dad and Mom. Do I really have to tell them? Wu Shuang looked up at Ji Tianqing. She still wanted to keep her little secret and didn't want to reveal it. However, Ji Tianqing, Yin Yao, and the other 2 said firmly, of course. If there's anything that makes you unhappy, you must tell us. Shuang, be good. Tell us. Ji Wushuang hesitated for a moment before whispering, Father, I want to see what the God realm is like. Her voice was very soft and lacking in confidence. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head, not daring to look at her parents' reaction. She expressed her wish carefully, but she was worried that it would cause trouble for her parents or that she would be rejected. Back then, she was born in the 5 elements world of the lower planes. However, ever since she was born, she spent 95% of her time cultivating in the divine pagoda. The only people by her side were her mother, Ji Ku, Qian Yu, and Black Dragon. Only Ji Tianqing had left the divine tower to participate in the battle before he conquered the major galaxies and destroyed the heaven-punishing race. After everyone ascended to the God realm, she never left the God pagoda. What exactly was the legendary eternal God realm like? She didn't know that she didn't even have a vague shadow in her heart. She couldn't even begin to fantasize. Even though she knew that her parents did not allow her to leave the pagoda in order to protect her. Letting her cultivate in the distorted spacetime was also to let her grow faster. However, she was only a young girl after all. Her temperament was very pure and simple. She also longed to leave this cold and dark space and see the outside world. Blue sky, white clouds, green water, green mountains, and hundreds of flowers, these things that couldn't be more ordinary were very distant to her. However, she was too obedient and sensible. She had always hidden her true thoughts in the bottom of her heart and did not express them. Now, for the first time, she expressed her wish to her parents. It was inevitable that she would feel uneasy. Ji Tianqing, Yin Yao, and Ji Ku immediately quieted down. The 3 of them looked at each other. Their expressions became complicated. Their eyes were filled with self-blame and guilt. This was because they had guessed Wushuang's thoughts. They also understood their own negligence. The atmosphere was a little heavy. Wushuang pursed her lips and hugged Ji Tianqing's neck. She comforted him softly, Father, I'm sorry. I'm not sensible. Don't be troubled. I was just saying. You don't have to take it seriously. His daughter was so smart, obedient, and sensible. Ji Tianqing felt even more guilty and distressed. He stretched out his hands and cupped Wushuang's cheeks. He said in a serious tone, Wushuang, it's us who have let you down. We neglected your feelings. Although you are the apple of our eye and the smartest and most adorable child in the world, we owe you. But we owe you. We couldn't let you have a normal childhood like other children. I promise you that I will take you out of the God pagoda and see what the God realm is like. Ji Tianqing made a solemn promise. A faint smile appeared on Wushuang's little face. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. She was about to speak when Yin Yao quickly shook her head and refused. She persuaded, Wushuang, it's true that we owe you. However, we still have many opportunities to make up for it in the future. However, right now, your father is in a dangerous situation. He can't accompany you for the time being. Ji Ku also held Wushuang's little hand and persuaded, Wushuang, please be considerate of your father one more time. After this matter is over, let him make it up to you, okay? The smile on Wushuang's little face gradually faded. A trace of disappointment flashed through her big clear eyes. However, she nodded obediently and said, okay. Ji Tianqing's heart ached when he saw this. He couldn't bear it and said in a firm tone, Yao Yao, Cuckoo, stay in the God Pagoda and cultivate. Break through to the God Monarch realm. I will bring Wushuang to the Longwind courtyard for a few days and play in the king's city for a few days. No matter what, even if the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom changes its monarch, it's not as important as me accompanying my daughter. No matter what danger there is, I will protect Wushuang well. It's decided. Since he had already made up his mind, Yun Yao and Ji Ku wouldn't object anymore. Ji Wushuang raised her head and looked at her father. Her thin lips were tightly pursed and her big clear eyes were covered with a layer of mist. Ever since she was born, she had spent very little time with her father. In her impression and cognition, her father had always been cold and dignified. Only today did she know that her mother didn't lie to her. Her father was indeed the most domineering expert who loved her the most. Having a father who doted on her so much and was so powerful and domineering was her greatest pride. However, the only regret was that her brother wasn't by everyone's side. If her parents could go to the Dragon Realm as soon as possible and rescue her brother, how great would it be if the family could be reunited? Wushuang prayed silently in her heart. Ji Tianqing reminded Yun Yao and Ji Ku before leaving the God Pagoda with Wushuang. Yun Yao and Ji Ku collected their thoughts and hurriedly went into seclusion to cultivate. Both of them secretly made up their minds to break through to the God Monarch realm as soon as possible. At that time, they would be able to accompany Ji Tianqing and help him take care of Wushuang. That way, Ji Tianqing could also concentrate on handling matters and dealing with crises. Swoosh! A white light flashed and Ji Tianqing brought Wushuang back to the room. Chapter 3004. Seeing Ji Tianqing and Ji Wushuang appear, Bai Long was startled. He returned the divine pagoda to Ji Tianqing and asked doubtfully, Master, you only brought junior sister out to play? What about the two mistresses? Don't they plan to come out for some fresh air? Ji Tianqing shook his head and explained, I helped them solve the bottleneck. They want to cultivate in seclusion and break through to the Divine Lord realm as soon as possible. I see. Bai Long quickly nodded, indicating that he understood. Ji Wushuang stared at Bai Long and pouted, Cuckoo, mother didn't guess wrong. It was senior brother Bai who made the decision on his own and used mother as an excuse. Bai Long was embarrassed. He explained with a smile, little junior sister, you've wronged me. I'm just being nice. You see, the two mistresses are so bored cultivating, they should come out to relax, right? And you? If I didn't remind Master, would you come out to play? Wushuang thought for a moment, and it seemed to be reasonable, so she didn't argue with Bai Long anymore. Bai Long successfully fooled his junior sister, and he snickered in his heart, secretly rejoicing. Ji Tianqing saw clearly, but he didn't point it out and was too lazy to pay attention to Bai Long. He held Wushuang's little hand and said gently, Wushuang, this is where father is currently staying, called Changfeng Courtyard. Let's go, father will take you around the manor first. N. Ji Wushuang quickly nodded, her little face revealing a happy smile. Then, the father and daughter held hands and walked out of the room, strolling around the manor. Bai Long had nothing to do, so he could only follow behind the two of them, acting as a guard and follower. Wushuang hadn't left the Divine Pagoda for many years. Even if she was just strolling around the Changfeng courtyard, she was in a happy mood and laughed continuously. Father, is this the manor where the gods live? Apart from being more magnificent than the mortal world's houses, there isn't much difference. I always thought that the gods of the divine realm lived in the sea of clouds or in caves. Father, the divine power here is so rich, it's a treasure land for cultivation. Wow! There are so many flowers and plants over there, so beautiful. There are butterflies and bees in this season. Father, did you secretly do something? Wuxia seemed to be particularly excited. Her small figure shuttled back and forth in the manner. She felt that everything was strange and interesting. There were hundreds of blooming flowers, a dark green bamboo forest, verdant pine trees, and a lotus pond full of lotus seeds. Even the flocks of spirit birds, butterflies, and flying ants were the targets of her observation. She was like a curious baby, carefully observing everything in the manner. Normally, she was very quiet and didn't speak much. Today, she spoke dozens of times more than usual, and her clear and melodious laughter never stopped. Ji Tianqing was not only patient, but he also enjoyed this rare moment of warmth. He followed closely behind Wuxia and patiently answered all her questions. Looking at her smiling face that was like a flower, looking at her jumping around, looking at her dancing with the butterflies among the flowers. He watched as she flew into the sky and flew side by side with all kinds of spirit birds. This scene made him smile dotingly. At this moment, he'd completely let go of his grudges and schemes to accompany his daughter with all his heart. At first, the white dragon felt a little bored. Later, he was also infected by Wuxia's naivety and happiness. He actually didn't care about his image, and played with Wuxia, trying his best to make her happy. The many maids and guards in the manor all knew that Ji Tianqing's background was mysterious and noble. Wherever Ji Tianqing went, the surrounding guards and maids would respectfully bow and quietly retreat. After the crowd retreated, they would gather in groups of 3 to 5 and whisper to each other. Everyone was very curious. Wasn't young Master Tianqing alone? Why did a white-haired young man appear beside him? And a noble, beautiful, naive, and adorable little girl. The most important thing was that astonishingly beautiful and adorable little girl's appearance and temperament were actually a little similar to young Master Tianqing. For a moment, all kinds of guesses and discussions spread among the guards and maids. Did you see? This afternoon, young Master Tianqing brought a young man and a little girl to play in the manor. We all saw it. That little girl is so beautiful and adorable. She's simply a masterpiece of God. How beautiful do you think the girl's mother is? By the way, haven't you thought about the relationship between that little girl and young Master Tianqing? I think that little girl and young Master Tianqing look a little alike. They might be brother and sister, or father and daughter. Don't make wild guesses. I heard the little girl call him father. That's young Master Tianqing's daughter. Gosh! Young Master Tianqing actually has a daughter. What about Sir Celestial Zhenhong? That's right. At noon, I saw Sir Celestial Zhenhong. She seemed to be very emotional. She trotted all the way back to her residence and hid. He. She served young Master Tianqing at noon. Of course, she was emotional and ashamed to see anyone. But, young Master Tianqing already has a daughter. Sister Zhenhong served him in bed. Will there be any results? Sir Celestial Zhenhong served young Master Tianqing in bed. That's a task. Between them, it could only be a short-lived marriage, a play on the field. She actually hopes to get close to that young master. She's thinking too much, isn't she? Alas. Too noble and too outstanding, in fact, the most fickle and ungrateful. Even if that young master slept with Sister Zhenhong, he wouldn't take responsibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought his daughter around the manor for a stroll. You say, if Sister Zhenhong knew about this, how sad she would be. Usually, Changfeng courtyard was always empty. The third prince didn't live here. He only used it to entertain distinguished guests. As a result, the guards and maids of Changfeng courtyard were very idle. Often, there was no task to do for a few years. People who were too idle liked to gossip. They could talk about trivial things for a long time. As a result, in just 2 hours, the news spread throughout the manor. Not only the 100 maids, but even the 300 guards also knew what had happened today. As a result, the manor was full of discussions about Ji Tianqing and Sir Zhenhong, as well as Ji Tianqing's daughter. Countless people felt sorry for Sir Zhenhong, and a small number of people's impression of Ji Tianqing became very bad. And Ji Tianqing knew all of this like the back of his hand. He accompanied Wuxia for the whole afternoon and walked around the entire Changfeng courtyard. But secretly, his divine sense had been covering the entire manor. Everything that happened in the manor couldn't escape his detection. After sunset, he returned to his residence with Wuxia and White Dragon. Wuxia played around for the whole afternoon and was a little tired. So, Ji Tianqing let her rest in the room, and White Dragon guarded outside the door. He went to the conference hall and summoned Lai Fu, Sir Zhenhong, and the 3 captains of the guards for a temporary meeting. Chapter 3005. Night fell. The conference hall was brightly lit. Lai Fu, Zhenhong, and the 3 guard captains stood respectfully in the hall. Ji Tianqing sat at the head of the table, looking dignified and looking down at the 5 people indifferently. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive. Lai Fu and the others were nervous and had a dignified expression. This was the first time that Ji Tianqing officially called them to discuss in the hall since he moved into the Changfeng courtyard. The 5 people could feel Ji Tianqing's anger and guessed that something bad would happen tonight. Sure enough. Ji Tianqing said in a low voice, "The people of the Changfeng courtyard must have been idle for too long. They have nothing to do all day long, so they talk about right and wrong. I have only lived here for a day, but there are hundreds of rumors and slanders, filling the whole courtyard. Lai Fu, as the housekeeper of the Changfeng courtyard, you connived with the people under you to spread rumors and make trouble. How should you be punished? The whole Changfeng courtyard is in a mess, wouldn't it damage the reputation of the 3rd prince? Have you ever thought about the consequences? If those maids and guards only talked about him behind his back, he would not be so angry. But those idle people not only criticized him and Zhenhong, but also involved Wuxia. Wasn't that courting death? Ji Tianqing didn't want his daughter to be hurt even a little bit, even if she was criticized by others. He must immediately stop the rumors and use thunderous means to deter everyone. Therefore, he directly condemned with a fierce tone and a dignified look. The invisible pressure of the divine soul suddenly shrouded the whole hall. Lai Fu, Zhenhong, and the others were all shocked, and a strong fear was born in their hearts. Especially Lai Fu, he quickly bowed and apologized, "Young Master Tianqing, please don't be angry. It's this old man's fault for not being able to stop the spread of rumors in time. This old man doesn't want to shirk the responsibility, and I dare not damage the reputation of the Lord. This old man deserves to die 10,000 times. I have betrayed the trust of the Lord and the young master. Please punish me heavily." Ji Tianqing stared at him expressionlessly and said in a deep voice, "How can a punishment deter those idle people? This June will cut the Gordian knot and stop the rumors with blood." Lai Fu's body stiffened, shock flashed across his eyes, and his heart trembled. He subconsciously thought that Ji Tianqing wanted to kill him to establish his authority. Zhenhong and the 3 captains also had the same idea. Their complexions changed dramatically. The 4 of them bowed at the same time and said in a sincere and anxious tone, "Please calm down, young master. Housekeeper Lai Fu can't be blamed for this. We are all responsible. It's because we didn't discipline him well that he ended up like this." Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, punish them all. This subordinate is willing to share the burden for butler Lai Fu and accept the punishment together with Uncle Lai Fu. Ji Tianqing glared at the 4 of them and said coldly, "You guys are quite loyal to your friends. However, all of you are indeed guilty and should be punished together. Zhen Hong and the three captains fell silent. Lai Fu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At least, Ji Tianqing said that they should be punished together, not killed together. Ji Tianqing stared at Sir God Zhen Hong and said in a deep voice, "The rise of the rumors originated from the misunderstanding at noon. Not only the maids and guards in the mansion, but even Lai Fu and the three captains might have misunderstood. So, it's no wonder that the maids and guards believed it without a doubt. Zhen Hong, tell them in person what happened at noon." As soon as he said this, Sir God Zhen Hong froze in place. She opened her mouth in astonishment, and her expression became extremely awkward. Her eyes also became evasive. What happened at noon was too embarrassing, too shameful. After she returned to her residence, she stayed in her room for the whole afternoon. It took her a long time to calm herself down. Now, Ji Tianqing actually wanted her to repeat it in front of everyone. How could she say it? It was too embarrassing. For a moment, Sir God Zhen Hong was at a loss. Lai Fu and the three captains looked at each other. They looked at Ji Tianqing, then at Zhen Hong, and muttered in their hearts. Could it be that something really happened between them? Otherwise, why would Sir God Zhen Hong be so bashful and embarrassed? But that's not right. If something really happened, shouldn't they be hiding it? And they want Sir God Zhen Hong to repeat it in public? How perverted. Thinking of this, the expressions of Lai Fu and the three captains changed again. At this time, Ji Tianqing shouted in a dignified tone, "Zhen Hong, the matter is clear and clear. Since you didn't do anything wrong, why can't you say it?" Zhen Hong took a deep breath and finally made up his mind. Then, he said, "Sir God Zhen Hong's life was given to me by His Majesty. This kindness must be repaid sooner or later. Unfortunately, Zhen Hong's strength is too low to help His Majesty. The only use and value it had was that it was a rather decent body. Therefore, the government of Zhen Hong has long determined that friends please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Yes, I will offer myself at the right time to help Master solve his problems." Today, he met young Master Tianqing, who was an honored guest of the Lord. Moreover, the Lord had specially arranged for the young master to stay here. I took it as a sign from the Lord, and decided that the time had come to repay the Lord. Similarly, Uncle Lai Fu also thinks the same, which is why he took the initiative to bring up that matter. Zhen Hong spoke expressionlessly and calmly. He had completely abandoned his sense of shame and guilt, as if he was talking about someone else. Only in this way would she be able to clearly explain the cause and effect of the matter. Lai Fu and the three imperial bodyguard captains listened quietly and nodded in agreement. After all, what Zhen Hong said was also what they were thinking. Zhen Hong continued, "At noon, the young master ordered Zhen Hong to tidy up the bedroom and said that he wanted to rest later." Zhen Hong's misunderstanding deepened. After helping the young master tidy up the room, I took off my outer clothes, sat at the head of the bed, and waited for the young master. No matter how strong her willpower was, she had already made sufficient preparations. When talking about this matter, she was still blushing with shame. Her whole body was red and boiling, and her voice was trembling and intermittent. Lai Fu and the three imperial bodyguard captains were also extremely embarrassed. They wanted to raise their hands to support their foreheads. Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "No need to describe the details. Continue to talk about the matter." Zhen Hong breathed a sigh of relief. Her shame and indignation were slightly reduced. She continued, but it turned out that Zhen Hong misunderstood. Not long after, young Master Tianqing came, followed by his entourage. Young Master Tianqing righteously rejected Zhen Hong and told Zhen Hong not to offend him again, or he would be severely punished. Zhen Hong was ashamed. After apologizing, she retreated and went back to her residence to reflect on her mistakes. Zhen Hong finally finished talking about the matter. She let out a long sigh of relief. Lai Fu and the 3 imperial bodyguard captains also endured the awkwardness and listened to the end. A big stone hanging in their hearts finally fell. Fortunately, the thing they expected didn't happen. Everything was a misunderstanding. The news that was spread in the residence was really just rumors and slanders. Ji Tianqing said in a dignified tone, "You already know the course of the matter. The imperial bodyguards and maids in the residence slandered this lord and this lord's daughter. The nature of the matter is very vile. The 5 of you, immediately investigate the source of the rumors. After the results are found, kill the rumormongers. Kill at least 5 people. If one is missing, you will make up for it yourselves." Chapter 3006. Ji Tianqing had never been lenient in killing those Protoss. What's more, those Protoss maids and guards had only themselves to blame. But his methods were so ruthless, and his requirements were so harsh. The faces of Lai Fu, Zhen Hong, and the others all changed, and their eyes showed horror. They didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would be so angry and start a massacre just because his daughter was criticized. Didn't he spoil his daughter too much? Although they thought so in their hearts, Lai Fu and the others didn't dare to refute and could only act according to the order. After saying yes, the 5 immediately left the hall to investigate the source of the rumors. Under the strict order, the 5 people were extremely efficient. In just a quarter of an hour, they found the original rumormongers. They selected 5 of the worst among those rumormongers and beheaded them in public in the square. Those 5 people not only created rumors, but also spread rumors. They even added oil and vinegar, distorted the facts, and said filthy things. They deserved to be killed. Hundreds of maids and guards gathered in the square and watched the 5 people being killed with their own eyes. All of them were so frightened that their hearts trembled and their souls scattered. After all, they also participated in the rumor and discussion. If they really wanted to investigate, their crimes didn't deserve death, but they couldn't escape punishment. Later, Lai Fu clarified the truth in public and strictly ordered everyone to keep their mouths shut and not make any more rumors. Many maids and guards quickly nodded to show that they understood. Soon, this matter was dealt with. The rumors that were spreading in the Changfeng courtyard were finally stopped. It was 6:45, and it was time for dinner. Lai Fu ordered the imperial chef to prepare a table full of dishes and personally sent them to Ji Tianqing's residence. He also wanted to take this opportunity to apologize to Ji Tianqing and ease the atmosphere. Although Ji Tianqing ordered the 5 rumormongers to be killed and didn't punish him, Zhen Hong, and the others. But he knew in his heart that Ji Tianqing was just giving face to the 3rd prince and didn't touch them for the time being. If they did something again next time, Ji Tianqing wouldn't be soft-hearted to kill them. Originally, Ji Tianqing didn't have the habit of eating. He would only occasionally attend banquets on important occasions. He originally wanted to refuse and ask Lai Fu to return the banquet. Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, however, when he thought about it again, Wuxia had never been to such an occasion, nor had he tasted the delicacies of the divine realm. Therefore, he brought Wuxia and White Dragon to the restaurant for dinner. Dozens of exquisite delicacies were placed on the white jade round table, which had a circumference of 10 feet. Not only did it look, smell, and taste good, but it also shone with divine light and was full of spiritual energy. Wuxia was very happy to see this. Not only was she amazed, but she also pulled Ji Tianqing aside and asked him all sorts of questions. She was interested in everything. Ji Tianqing pulled her to sit down and accompanied her to taste each dish. The White Dragon stood at the side and answered Wuxia's questions from time to time. Lai Fu also stood obediently, constantly pouring wine for Ji Tianqing. Although Wuxia was young, she had inherited her mother's elegance. Even when tasting such a large table of delicacies, she was still very elegant, lively, and cute. Seeing her smile continuously, happy and satisfied, Ji Tianqing's mood became even more cheerful, and more smiles appeared on his face. Seeing this scene, Lai Fu's heart finally fell to the ground. He thought to himself, young Master Tianqing's love for his daughter is really hard to come by. It seems that I've made the right move this time. In the future, if I want to get closer to young Master Tianqing, I just have to do my best to please his daughter. After an hour, dinner was over. The amount of delicacies on the table was not reduced, and many dishes were still the same. Wu Shuang only tasted each dish twice, so of course, she could not eat much. But even so, she was still very full, very happy, and very satisfied. Ji Tianqing brought Wu Shuang out of the restaurant and went to the garden to look at the stars, planning to tell her a story. Just as he walked into the garden, he saw that in the clear night sky, there were not only silver stars, but also dense multicolored light spots. Wu Shuang looked up and asked in confusion, "Father, didn't you say that most of the stars are silver and white? Why are there so many colorful ones?" Ji Tianqing observed carefully and realized that the colorful lights floating in the night sky were thousands of exquisite lanterns. He patted Wu Shuang's head and explained with a smile, "Those are not stars, they are all lanterns." "Why are there so many lanterns?" Wu Shuang raised her cute little face, blinked her big clear eyes, and asked, "What festival is it today?" Without waiting for Ji Tianqing to reply, Lai Fu took the initiative to explain, "Young lord, this is the annual lantern festival in the capital. And NB friends please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, SP, it was to commemorate the ancestors who founded the Divine Kingdom, and also to celebrate the completion of the Divine Kingdom. Every year at this time, the Lantern Festival lasted for 2 days. At night, the citizens would walk on the streets and release their own exquisite lanterns. Not only would the city be lively and bustling, there would also be all kinds of delicacies, vendors, and programs, as well as all kinds of lantern competitions. If young lord went to the city to play, you would definitely be able to enjoy countless beautiful sceneries and taste all kinds of delicacies. With young lord's intelligence and wisdom, if you were to participate in the lantern competition or guess the riddles, you would definitely be able to come out on top. Lai Fu explained the origin and content of the Lantern Festival, and then praised Wu Shuang. Although Wu Shuang was clever, she did not take Lai Fu's boasting seriously. But everyone liked to hear praises, so of course she would feel happy. Thus, she became interested in the Lantern Festival in the city and looked forward to it. Even if she did not say anything, Ji Tianqing saw her bright eyes and envious face looking at the sky full of lanterns and guessed her thoughts. "Wu Shuang, father will bring you to the Lantern Festival, okay?" Ji Tianqing pulled Wu Shuang and asked with a smile. Wu Shuang smiled sweetly and quickly nodded, "Okay. Father is the best. Then let's go." Ji Tianqing chuckled and left the garden with Wu Shuang and White Dragon. Lai Fu quickly followed and asked respectfully, "Young lord, if you take young lord to the Lantern Festival, this old servant will send 2 guard captains to follow you. They can protect you and young lord, and you can also have people around you, which will save you a lot of trouble." Ji Tianqing thought of the 3 guard captains, frowned, and said, "Don't let them come. Just let Zhen Hong follow us." How could Lai Fu dare to say no? Of course, he nodded and said with a smile, "Okay. This old servant will inform Miss Zhen Hong. She is meticulous and will take care of young lord more carefully." After that, he quickly used his divine sense to inform Sir Zhen Hong. After a while, when Ji Tianqing and the others walked to the gate of Changfeng Courtyard, Sir Zhen Hong also rushed over. She came in front of everyone, bowed to Ji Tianqing, and greeted him and Wu Shuang. Wu Shuang nodded with a smile, called Sister Zhen Hong, and secretly stared at her to observe. This call of sister made Zhen Hong's cheeks a little hot, and her eyes became evasive. She did not dare to look directly at Ji Tianqing and his daughter. But she still liked this smart and cute little girl very much. Chapter 3007. Ji Tianqing and the others took a luxurious carriage and left the long-wind courtyard. The carriage was very spacious, like a small moving palace. Not only was the interior magnificent, comfortable, and convenient, but it was also pulled by 8 pure white Pegasus horses. On the cornice of the 4 corners of the carriage, there were also luxurious gemstone lamps hanging, showing the emblem of the royal family. When the people of the royal city saw it, they naturally knew that it was the carriage of the royal family. The people in the carriage should be relatives of the royal family, or noble princes. Naturally, when the carriage drove on the wide street, countless people moved to the sides. After a short quarter of an hour, the carriage drove to Nanfeng Street and stopped. This 100-meter wide street was actually bustling with people, jostling shoulder to shoulder. Looking from the street to the end of the street, it was crowded with people. Countless people walked in groups of 3 or 5, holding beautiful lanterns in their hands, their faces full of smiles. Countless shops on both sides of the street were also decorated with lanterns and colored banners, hanging all kinds of lights. Ji Tianqing and the others got out of the carriage and walked on the street, enjoying the scenery along the way. The coachman was guarding the carriage, waiting on the street. Ji Tianqing walked in front with Wu Shuang, Zhen Hong and Bai Long followed behind. Although the street was very crowded, Ji Tianqing exuded an invisible divine power. The pedestrians and people around were blocked by an invisible force, unable to get close to them. In this way, no matter how crowded the street was, they were unimpeded. Wu Shuang looked at everything around her with curiosity, her delicate little face full of smiles. She often stopped and watched for a moment when she saw something interesting. For example, some clever people made a variety of lanterns in different shapes. They were not the traditional lanterns at all, but were made into figures, kites, and divine beasts. There were also many lanterns made into lifelike divine birds, spreading their wings and flying in the night sky, which were particularly eye-catching. Wu Shuang was fascinated by it, and while she was amazed, she would also ask Ji Tianqing. The father and daughter held hands and strolled leisurely, which was also very warm. Bai Long and Zhen Hong looked at their backs, and their minds relaxed and were full of warmth. When they passed by a shop selling lanterns, Wu Shuang stared at a doll lantern for a long time. That friends please prompt, pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. The doll lantern was very realistic. It was a 3-foot-tall boy. He didn't look childish at all. Instead, he looked exceptionally handsome and cold. There was even a hint of arrogance between his brows. Even though this puppet was of the Protoss race and had a head full of white hair. However, it didn't make people feel strange. Instead, it made him look even colder. Zhen Hong's attention was always on Wu Shuang. He saw Wu Shuang staring at the doll lantern as if she was thinking about something. Therefore, Zhen Hong took the initiative to buy the doll lantern and gave it to Wu Shuang. Wu Shuang was stunned for a moment before reaching out to take the lantern. She thanked Zhen Hong. Zhen Hong smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Young master is too polite. I think this lantern is exquisitely made and interesting. Young master should like it, right?" "Yes." Wu Shuang nodded. She held the doll lantern and looked at it carefully. Ji Tianqing touched Wu Shuang's head and asked, "Wu Shuang, there were so many beautiful lanterns before. There were peacocks, phoenixes, and all kinds of divine beasts. Why did you take a fancy to this lantern?" Wu Shuang pursed her lips, lowered her head, and whispered, "Father, I miss my brother." Ji Tianqing instantly fell silent. He carefully observed the doll lantern again. It was actually somewhat similar to Wu Hen's appearance, silhouette, and temperament. He immediately understood. No wonder Wu Shuang stared at this lantern for a long time. He sighed silently in his heart. He squatted down and took Wu Shuang's hand. With a solemn expression, he said to her, "Wushuang, father will do his best to find your brother as soon as possible." Wushuang nodded and hugged the dull lantern even tighter. Bai Long watched from the side. His mood was complicated, and he sighed secretly. Although Zhenhong did not know what was going on, he could feel that Ji Tianqing and Wushuang's mood was somewhat heavy. Thus, she pulled Wushuang's hand and comforted her, "Young mistress, the Lantern Festival is a tradition of our kingdom of gods and is also the most important festival of the year. As long as you light this lantern and let it fly into the night sky, it will fly to where you want it to go with your thoughts and blessings. The people you care about will also feel your feelings. You can try." Wushuang looked at Zhenhong with burning eyes and asked, "Really?" Ji Tianqing and White Dragon thought to themselves. Of course, it was fake. However, both of them remained silent, not wanting to spoil the atmosphere. Zhenhong nodded at Wushuang and said seriously, "Of course it's true. Try it." Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. Wushuang hesitated for a moment before injecting divine power into the flower lantern to light it up. Suddenly, the dull lantern became bright and gorgeous. It slowly rose into the night sky and flew toward the distant sky. This kind of flower lantern was expensive to make. Not only was the material special and strong, but it also contained arrays and god stones. With the support of the arrays and divine power, the flower lantern could fly to very far places. Not long after, the dull lantern flew thousands of feet into the night sky and became one of the lanterns and stars in the sky. Wushuang kept looking up at the dull lantern, her eyes full of hope and expectation. She also prayed silently in her heart, hoping that her brother would be safe and that he could return soon and reunite with his family. After a long time, when the lanterns flew further and further away, they could no longer see them clearly. Only then did they continue shopping. Next, they shopped several streets and bought a few more lanterns and many snacks. Wushuang even participated in a lantern riddles competition and successfully won the championship, winning the applause and amazement of the audience. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Ji Tianqing, who had been smiling and in a good mood, suddenly frowned. In his deep eyes, a cold murderous intent flashed. Because his divine sense detected that within 1,000 feet radius, there were several groups of people secretly watching them. In fact, from the moment they left the Changfeng court in the carriage, those groups of people had been secretly watching them. They had been watching until now and had not left. The street was bustling with people. Ji Tianqing was playing happily with Wushuang and did not seem to notice anything strange. Those groups of people secretly watching them became more and more bold and relaxed, and even came closer. Ji Tianqing did not want to ruin Wushuang's mood, and did not want those flies to follow nearby. He quietly released a dozen or so strands of divine power, condensing them into invisible swords, and stabbed at those groups of people. The next moment, those groups of people who were watching them stiffened and stood in place with frightened expressions. 12 masters' divine souls were seriously injured and fell unconscious on the spot, bleeding from their 7 orifices. The remaining masters were also seriously injured. Only then did they realize that they had been exposed and fled into the distance in a panic. White Dragon saw Ji Tianqing's strange look and guessed that something had happened. He asked, "Master, what happened?" Ji Tianqing shook his head gently and said, "Nothing, I just drove away a few flies." Chapter 3008. In the North District of the Royal City, there was a group of majestic palaces where high-ranking officials, rich people, and influential people lived. In this group of palaces, there was a palace made of black stone and golden tiles called the Holy Flame Palace. This was an ancient palace with a history of thousands of years. Many years ago, the first prince had established his own residence after he came of age. The king was sympathetic and thought highly of him, so he gave the Holy Flame Palace to him as his residence. Now, the first prince had passed away many years ago. His successor, Duanmu Crown Prince, became the owner of the Holy Flame Palace. Relying on his father's blessings, Duanmu Crown Prince continued to enjoy wealth and power. The Holy Flame Palace was still the first prince's residence and had not been demoted to a crown prince's residence. Many of the high-ranking officials knew that this was not because the king liked or thought highly of Duanmu Crown Prince. It was because the first prince had sacrificed himself for the king, which made the king feel guilty. No matter what, the king had to take care of the crown prince. He could not let others think that he was unkind. It was late at night, but the Holy Flame Palace was brightly lit and filled with people. Countless guards were patrolling. The first prince was hosting a banquet in the hall to entertain the influential people. The second prince, Duanmu Xiong, did not attend the banquet. He was sitting in a secret underground room, thinking about something with a cold expression. The dim light in the corner shone on half of his face. One could vaguely see that his expression was cold and his eyes were malicious. Since Duanmu Xiong left Tianxue County and returned to the royal city, everyone felt that he had changed. Especially those in the first prince's residence, they were all surprised and confused. In the past, the second prince was elegant and cheerful. He often went out and showed himself in public. Especially during the Lantern Festival, he would definitely go out and have fun. He would even participate in a few lantern and lantern riddles competitions and win a few places in the top 3. He was elegant and elegant. But in the past month, the second prince had been living in seclusion. He claimed to be cultivating in seclusion. The few times he showed up, his aura was malicious and cold, which made people feel intimidated. Outsiders did not know the reason. However, the second prince and his trusted aide were well aware of the situation. It was all because of that bastard Tianqing. Duanmu Xiong would never forget the pain and humiliation he had suffered that night in the Maple Woods Manor. Body readers, please rest your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading. He was poisoned, his internal organs and meridians were damaged, and the tools to carry on his ancestral line were destroyed. He even had his face stepped on by Ji Tianqing, forcing him to lower his head and apologize. Most importantly, the poison was still in his body and could erupt at any time. This was a nightmare that Duanmu Xiong could never forget for the rest of his life. For more than a month, he didn't dare to sleep for even a moment. As long as he closed his eyes, the scene of that night would appear in his mind. He was suffering great pain and suffering, and his mind was on the verge of collapse. During this period of time, he had used all his resources to find the palace's imperial physicians, secular doctors, and several divine doctors. Even high divine lord realm powerhouses, he also found quite a few. However, just as Ji Tianqing had said, no one could cure the poison in his body. Only 2 miracle doctors could help him regrow his roots and temporarily relieve his pain. This was already the limit. Duanmu Xiong was about to go crazy. There were many times when he was on the verge of breaking down and wanted to give up. He wanted to die together with Ji Tianqing. He would rather die together with Ji Tianqing than be tortured again. Swoosh! Suddenly, a black shadow flew into the secret room and arrived in front of Duanmu Xiong. The black shadow was wearing a large black robe and a bronze mask, so his face couldn't be seen. However, from his body shape, he was a lean and capable middle-aged man. The black shadow reported in a deep voice, reporting to the crown prince, the people who were watching tonight were discovered and were all injured by Tianqing. They have already retreated. Duanmu Xiong's expression didn't change. He looked coldly at the black shadow and asked, "He has already been in the capital for a day, what's the result of the investigation?" The black shadow replied, reporting to the crown prince, "Since he entered the capital, more than a dozen of our small teams have been watching him. After a day of investigation, we have gained a lot of important information." Duanmu Xiong raised his eyebrows and his eyes brightened. Speak. The Black Shadow reported. He was taken away by the third prince's men as soon as he entered the city and settled in the Longwind Court. The leader of the maids in the Longwind Court is Divine Lord Zhenhong. He seems to be interested in Zhenhong and asked her to serve him at noon. The news spread in the Changfeng courtyard, and everyone knew about it. After Zhenhong went to bed, he swaggered around the city with his daughter and played for a few hours in Changfeng courtyard. At night, he suppressed the rumors and slanders and killed 5 maids and guards. The Black Shadow concisely described what happened in the Changfeng courtyard. Friends, please pay attention to the rest of your eyes after reading for a long time. 00 recommended reading, you have to report it to me. After Duanmu Xiong heard this, he furrowed his brows, and his eyes flickered with hatred. Damn beast, he just got in touch with Prince Yu Sanjing and moved into Changfeng courtyard, and he slept with Zhenhong. Duanmu Xiong had a close relationship with the third prince and the princess consort. He had been to Changfeng courtyard many times, so of course he knew the immortal Zhenhong. Moreover, he was also attracted by Zhenhong's special temperament and wanted to get his hands on him. But the third prince seemed to value Zhenhong very much, and he seemed to have other uses for it. Duanmu Xiong didn't dare to act rashly, so he could only endure and wait for an opportunity. But he didn't expect that the fruit he was looking for would be picked by Ji Tianqing. The most hateful thing is that the beast has a daughter. He already has a family, so why did he fight with me for Ning Xiyuan and Zhenhong? He is a despicable, hypocritical, heinous, and bastard. Duanmu Xiong clenched his fists, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He cursed with a ferocious face. The Black Shadow remained silent. After Duanmu Xiong calmed down a little, he persuaded, maybe it's just a rumor. After all, he suppressed the rumors and killed 5 guards and maids. Duanmu Xiong sneered, what about tonight? He went to the Lantern Festival, who followed him? The Black Shadow answered truthfully, the immortal Zhenhong. Ha! Duanmu Xiong sneered even more disdainfully. First he killed people to suppress the rumors, then he took his new wife to go shopping. I have never seen such a shameless person. The Black Shadow remained silent and didn't say much. Duanmu Xiong gradually calmed down and thought for a moment. He said in a low voice, he chased me from Tianxue County to the Imperial City, and has been suppressing and humiliating me. If I don't get rid of him, I will never have a day of peace. Today he just arrived at the Imperial City, and he took Zhenhong by force. He even deliberately showed off in public, just to disgust me. If I don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I don't know what he will do again. After that, he ordered the Black Shadow, go and tell Purple Fiend Star that I am willing to pay 30 billion for Tianqing's life. The Black Shadow's body shook, and he persuaded, Prince, 30 billion will empty the Imperial City's savings. The eldest prince will definitely be furious, Duanmu Xiong sneered, so what if I go bankrupt? When has my big brother ever cared about my life? I have had enough. Even if I have to die together with that beast, I won't hesitate. Chapter 3009. Duanmu Xiong's attitude was firm and resolute. The Black Shadow hesitated for a while before he tried to persuade Duanmu Xiong again, Your Highness, please think twice. The Evil Blood Palace has failed twice and lost several generals. They definitely won't accept this task again. Duanmu Xiong said in a low voice, 30 billion is the highest price in the past 1,000 years. The Evil Blood Palace will consider it. The Black Shadow was silent for a while. He could not persuade Duanmu Xiong, so he bowed and said, Yes, Your Highness. Then the Black Shadow merged into the darkness and disappeared. In the southern district of Yinwu City. The splendid mansion of the second prince was located at the end of the Vermilion Bird Avenue. The mansion covered an area of nearly 10 square miles. It not only had a spacious yard and a garden, but also numerous exquisite houses and palaces. Tonight was the Lantern Festival. The mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Everywhere was jubilant and full of people. Not only the family members of the mansion were having fun, but many guards, maids, and servants were also roaming in the garden at night. However, in the study of the second prince deep in the palace, the atmosphere was different. Different from the jubilation outside, the study was heavily guarded and the atmosphere was quite solemn and austere. 4 of the prince's advisors with different appearances were standing respectfully in the study, helping the second prince come up with a plan. 5 divine emperors in armor also stood solemnly and listened to the second prince's orders. These Sir Gods were all important figures who held great authority in their hands. They were either trusted aides of the second prince, generals with outstanding military exploits, or governors and top nobles. Sitting behind the desk was a middle-aged man in a golden robe with a golden crown on his head. He was the second prince. He was tall and sturdy with a dignified appearance. His bell-sized eyes were shining brightly and exuded awe-inspiring majesty. He had a goatee on his chin, which was neatly combed. His temples were white, but his thick eyebrows were slanted to his temples. This second prince was clearly a man of great talent and bold vision. Just a moment ago, the second prince had finished discussing some important matters with his aides and confidants. After he made his decision and gave the order, the armored confidants all saluted to show that they had obeyed the order. The second prince waved his hand, indicating for everyone to leave. The confidants hurriedly saluted and left the study one after another. Only the second prince and his 4 advisors were left in the study, and they soon quieted down. For many years, the second prince had been eager to recruit talents and had recruited many capable people. There were more than 1,000 diners in the prince's mansion. Among the nearly 1,000 people with special abilities, more than 40 of them were exceptionally talented and were hired by the second prince as his aides. Normally, these aides would rack their brains to help him plan and deal with all kinds of affairs. The 4 aides in the study were the elites and leaders of the group of aides. Especially the white-haired old man in the lead. He wore the attire of an immortal and learned scholar, and he held a silver horsetail whisk with both hands, causing him to seem extremely unfathomable. This person was the chief advisor, Yanlong Celestial Lord. The second prince leaned back in his large chair and closed his eyes to rest. His hands were rubbing the space between his eyebrows. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Lord Yanlong bowed slightly and calmly reported, "Master, it has been an entire day since Jianqing entered the capital. Many things have happened in this day. First, he was taken to the Longwind courtyard by the third prince's people for a temporary stay. Lord Yanlong reported to the second prince all the information that his spies and scouts had brought back to him. The second prince closed his eyes and listened quietly. No one could see any change in his expression. After a while, Lord Yanlong finished reporting everything that had happened in the day. Only then did the second prince open his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. He seemed to be talking to himself. Jianqing just moved into the Longwind courtyard, and he let the captain of the maidservants serve him in bed. Haha, that kid is vicious, but he is not a shallow person. This must be the third prince's honey trap. He wants to completely trap that kid and tie him to his chariot. Lord Yanlong nodded in agreement and said with a smile, "Master is wise." Judging from Tianqing's previous behavior, he is not the kind of person who is attached to women. The incident of serving him in bed was most likely the third prince's honey trap. But Tianqing then let his daughter appear and took her to stroll around the Longwind courtyard for several hours. At night, they suppressed the rumors and slanders and executed a few guards and maids. These 2 things are signals. Tianqing strongly and clearly expressed his position. Obviously, he is not willing to accept the third prince's honey trap, nor does he want to be the third prince's vanguard general. The second prince listened with a smile and showed a satisfied expression. Then tell me, what is the situation between Tianqing and the third prince? Lord Yan Long thought for a while and said in a serious tone, they are neither friendly nor distant. On the surface, they seem to be allies, grasshoppers tied to a string. But in fact, Tianqing and the third prince are not of one mind. Another hunchbacked aide added, judging from Tianqing's past behavior, he is very arrogant and will not submit to anyone. Even when facing the third prince, he only treats him as a friend, not as his master. Another middle-aged aide in a purple robe said with a serious expression, Tianqing is an extremely cunning person. He has long understood the situation in the capital. Even if he is very close to the third prince, he will not truly rely on the third prince. He knows better than us that only by waiting for the right price can he seize the greatest benefits. Once he is eager to pledge loyalty to the third prince, his value will be greatly reduced. Several aides spoke one after another, expressing their views on Tianqing. After they finished, the second prince nodded and said in a serious tone, "That's right. Your analysis is correct and comprehensive. Tianqing and the third prince's state shows that they are not completely united. We still have a chance." A chance? Lord Yan Long frowned in confusion and asked, "My lord, what do you mean?" The second prince's lips curled into a cold smile. "Even though Tianqing and I have a deep grudge against each other, he only killed my men and stole my belongings. There is no direct enmity between him and this king. At this critical moment, I am magnanimous and will not pursue him for the time being. In addition, I have been fighting openly and covertly with the third prince for so many years and have been able to maintain a balance without any results. Now, the fifth prince has appeared out of nowhere and is about to be crowned crown prince. At this time, we should set aside our prejudices and grudges and work together with the third prince to deal with the fifth prince. If I were to discuss cooperation with the third prince, he would definitely refuse. Tianqing has come at the right time. We will try to rope him in and use him as a bridge. I believe the third prince will agree." The aides thought for a moment and showed expressions of agreement. Lord Yan Long also smiled. "That's right. As long as we can convince Tianqing, we can force the third prince to agree to the cooperation. This subordinate is willing to step forward and help the lord with his troubles." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.